Councilors, are you ready? Good evening. Welcome to City of Woodburn's council meeting for January 27th. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance, which Councilor Cantu, will you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May we have a roll call, please?
Councillor Cornwell?
Present.
Councillor Bizuela? Councillor Shaw?
Here.
Councillor Wilk?
Here.
Councillor Cantu?
Here.
Councillor Grijalva?
Here.
Mayor Lonergan?
Here. We do not have any announcements or appointments, but I do have a couple things I'd like to speak about. A new item that I'm talking about is reflection. One is I want to congratulate our fire district. Our fire district had sent 4 firefighters down to Los Angeles, and they came back successfully Saturday after a long, hard 2 weeks, and helping their brethren in Los Angeles. Their names are Rob Grayson, Raul Garza, Dan Agee, and Joe Jacobucci. And thank you. Thank you. I see these men as heroes and putting themselves out there in the forefront. Also want to recognize today being the 80th anniversary of the Auschwitz liberation, which should be a reminder for all of us what might happen if we lose our freedom and democracy. Friday night, we had a terrible accident here in Woodburn, and I need to comment on that. We lost a student, we lost a community citizen, a 15-year-old that was unfortunately killed in a train incident, train accident. It is still under investigation, but our hearts go out to his family, to Woodburn High School, to our community. This is something that I wish didn't happen. It has happened more often than not. But I'd like to have a moment of silence, please, recognition and support of the student and his family. Thank you. Next, before we go on, there's another item that is affecting all of us and causing a sense of fear in our community, and that is what's going to happen with immigration and possibilities what's going on in around the country and potentially in our community. And I'll say that our City of Woodburn strongly supports the policies of DEI, and certainly, I guess I'd make it easier. I'd like our police chief to come up and give the city's position on how we feel going forward.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Jason Milliken. I'm your Acting Chief of Police for the City of Woodburn. And I do have a brief statement that I would like to read, and each of you have a copy in front of you. The federal government has begun nationwide immigration enforcement in major cities across the United States. As this type of enforcement continues to expand, we know it will undoubtedly create fear in our community. As the Acting Chief of Police and the Woodburn City Administrator, Scott Derrickson, it is our responsibility to ensure that the members of the Woodburn Police Department continue to provide the level of service that all our community members expect. Our mission is to enhance the safety by building trust through strong community partnerships. The members of the Woodburn Police Department are sworn to uphold the U.S. Constitution, the laws of the state of Oregon, and strict adherence to the department's policies and procedures. We are not authorized to enforce any federal civil laws. In particular, the state of Oregon is a sanctuary state, and Oregon Law 181A.820 specifically prohibits local law enforcement from getting involved in civil immigration matters. We have met with community members, and our message has not changed. We will follow the laws of the state of Oregon. We are we are very limited in what we can do regarding sharing information with the federal government. For example, we can share information with federal authorities when a crime is involved, or take a subject into custody when they have a federal arrest warrant for a crime that is signed by a federal judge. The City of Woodburn does not have the resources, the desire, nor the legal authority to assume any federal immigration responsibilities. The enforcement of civil immigration is the responsibility of the Department of Homeland Security and the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. The members of the Woodburn Police Department will follow the laws of the state of Oregon. Whether you live, work, or visit our community, please contact the Woodburn Police Department if you need our services. If it is an emergency, please call 911. For non-emergency services, please call 503-982-2345. I would also encourage anyone to follow our City of Woodburn social media and website for further information. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. You're welcome. Any questions, comments from the council? Okay. Scott, do you have anything? Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay. Moving on, we do not have any proclamations or presentations or communication. Next up is business from the public. This allows the public to introduce items for council consideration that is not already scheduled on the agenda. I know a lot of you here to discuss the public hearing we're going to have. Right now, we're not there yet. So people that are interested in commenting on another item, comment time will be limited to 3 minutes. Is there anyone from the public that would like to come up and speak about something that is not on the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I just spoke to a group of young people and adults about the train accident, the young person that died on the tracks this past week. Some of them wanted to comment tonight, and I think I was speaking to them in the hallway, so I'm not sure they had a chance to fill out a card. I also agreed that the issue of train safety could be an agenda item at the next meeting if people would rather have a more interactive conversation with the council then too. But I didn't want the opportunity to fly by without making sure people understood that they did have the opportunity.
Is there anyone in the hallway that would like to come in and talk about the unfortunate accident that happened Friday afternoon?
Is there anyone in the hallway that wants to speak about the accident that happened on Friday afternoon? Oh.
Mr. Mayor, why that travels outside the hall. Also, I've just been told that we're trying to contact IT. We do have speakers that broadcast the audio of this meeting into the hallway, but they're not working. So
at the moment,
we're trying to get them to work, and for those people in the hallway, we're working on it.
Okay. So I do not see or hear anyone from the outside that's coming in.
I'm here.
Who was that?
That's the.
Oh, is that the phone?
Yeah.
Oh, we did have someone that wanted to speak on the phone. Okay. Well, first let's go, is this Ansar Mohammed on the phone?
Yes, yes.
Okay, go ahead, ma'am. We have your name. Try and please limit this to 3 minutes.
My name is.
Yes, sir.
Hold on, I got a phone call first.
So my name is Ansar Al Mohammed, and my family and I have lived here for almost 20 years now. And I've never done this before, but as a community member, I could not be quiet anymore. The 2004 accident was my son's friend, and it hurt him so deeply as a child. So much so that it also affected his brother, who had nightmares of his own siblings in a coffin. So to have this happen to 2 more teens since then is heartbreaking. So I reached out to the community on Facebook and I shared an article from the Statesman's Journal from February 11, 2023 about the need for safety improvements proposals and funding. It said, quote, "We're trying to prevent the next tragic death, safety improvements to come after death of Woodburn students. The city and school district are pushing for new plans for pedestrian safety, including seeking state funds for major safety improvements," end quote. I asked the community what their thoughts are and what needs to be done to help. As a community, we came up with several ideas. Getting Woodburn School District on board to approve railroad safety classes taught by Union Pacific for all grades. In addition to this, we need to have someone talking with the students to see what they have to say and what they think will help prevent this from happening again. Educational flyers should also be sent out to all of Woodburn households. Fences with signs should be put up to help prevent shortcuts as well as education about the railway laws. Trains lowering their speeds going through our community, including Jervis. Changing train schedules so that it does not line up with before and after school walking. Patrolling the tracks, especially during these times, whether that is Woodburn Police Department, Union Pacific, or private security. Mental health and suicide prevention also came up to make sure those are readily available for our children. Seeing what modern technologies we can use, like this section of train track lit up in red when trains are approaching, and seeing if it is possible to have a fence tunnel with gates that open when the train is approaching. We also have to keep in mind that children sometimes feel as though they are invincible. This is why more than just education is needed. Everyone could just take a moment and think, if this was your family member, what would you want done? I strongly urge City Hall to read the community risk printout that I believe has been provided to all of you, to reach out to our governor, as I also have, for help, as well as Union Pacific and the Woodburn School District to help implement some of these things immediately, because we have to protect our children. I thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you for your comments, and I don't know if you heard earlier, but we are looking at putting this on at our next meeting as an agenda item with have more thorough discussion. Miss, go ahead.
I had the same comment.
Could I have your name, please? And
Emily.
speak up.
Emily Rojas.
Okay.
I had the same ideas. My friend died this Friday. I think you guys should do something about it because he was only 15 years old. He didn't deserve to die. Especially, kids are kids. We're gonna walk places. I think you guys should put up a barrier between the trains. He didn't deserve to die. His mom has to live the rest of her life knowing that there wasn't anything that could have gone in the way of him dying. I think you guys should take more into consideration that there's families out there that deserve to have their children watch them grow and have kids. They don't deserve to get their life taken away from an easy problem that could be fixed. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming and sharing. I'm so sorry for your loss.
Can I say something?
Please. Yeah.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Claudia Rojas. I've lived here for 5 years. Woodburn is our home, and Woodburn is our home, and I care for the community, the students here. I care about safety. I know that this would be a big job, a lot of coordination with different agencies, but I believe that either accident prevention, suicide prevention, something needs to be done to protect our teenagers, our students, especially with the railroads going at high speed, 70 miles per hour, that are so close to schools, to Valor Middle School, and then also to Woodburn High School. So I feel like we need to come together as a community to figure out a solution to keep these kids safe. This is preventable. That's all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And for point of clarification, I think it's 55 is what they're going, which I still think is too fast.
Oh, that's what I read online, that it was
That-
70 or
I'm
60
sorry, but
miles per
it's-
hour.
Yeah.
It's too fast for the community either way. There's residential homes around the area.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you for coming in. Greatly appreciate your thoughts and your concerns, which are similar. I can vouch for our council here. We have very similar concerns, and we'll try and, like I say, have a more thorough discussion when we have time to look at everything that's involved at our next meeting. So invite you to come back, please, to that. Okay?
Thank you. Will do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
You guys.
Okay. So next up is a consent agenda. Items listed on the consent agenda are considered routine and may be adopted by one motion.
Point of order. I believe there was another business from the public sheet.
You're right, I'm sorry. Rebecca Lurhart? Is Rebecca here?
Rebecca Wilhoit?
Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Sorry, I missed it, but
Oh, no, that's
thank you for
okay.
coming. Please,
I-
please give your name to the mic and,
My name's Rebecca Lurback. I live at 1180 Koffler Avenue in Woodburn. I did not realize this was a big council meeting today. I came to thank you for your affordable housing action. I think it is wonderful for Woodburn. I also think our community needs more education about what it means for the community. I have grown kids who are college educated and they cannot afford to live anywhere. So thank you for making this possible. The second thing, I wanted to commend you. I came in with a very heavy heart hearing about how our immigrant communities are going to be treated. I was heartened to hear our chief of police, I think that's who it was, I was way out
It
there, I
was.
couldn't tell. We've got to lean into this. This is not the time to turn our backs on people who have helped build our country and our community, and we love them, and we have to be here for them. And we have to stand up and resist this kind of bigotry and hatred. The third thing is my mom lives in the Country Meadows Estates. I'm there all the time. Evergreen Road is a racetrack. That is a senior center. There are a lot of folks out there who are barely ambulatory, and someone's gonna die. We need to get a stop sign in at that street, I can't remember what it's called, right behind the Walmart, at least. It is very dangerous, and we are looking, I mean, there are accidents there all the time. An old person is soon to go. I mean, it's just really dreadful there. So thank you. I didn't want to take up too much time given all these folks. And they can't hear you very well. They asked me to send that message, so thank you.
thank you very much for coming. Appreciate your comments. Heather, do we have anyone else?
No.
Okay. Okay, then moving on to the consent agenda. Items listed on the consent agenda are considered routine and may be adopted by one motion. Any item may be removed for discussion at the request of a council member. May we please have the city recorder read the items aloud that are on the consent agenda?
The items on the consent agenda are as follows. Woodburn City Council minutes of January 13th, 2025. Traffic photo enforcement report, October through December 2024. Monthly financial report. Acceptance of public utility easement at 1274 North 5th Street.
acceptance of easements and right-of-way associated with this speculative industrial development project, and a liquor license application for Romero's Cantina LLC.
Thank you. Does anyone on the council want to pull anything up?
I had a concern.
Thank you. And that concern is?
The liquor license. The report we got from the police department was suggesting that they were concerned about the hours, not the hours of operation, but how they were going to manage it.
They do
How
not
it was
have
gonna
a
be-
secluded area for
Correct.
the.
And they weren't sure
as
who
they
was
are-
going to imbibe in the alcohol once they paid for it, and it's not, yeah, secluded is the main thing.
Thank you, Councilor. I had a similar concern, and I talked to our city attorney about it. Ultimately, it comes up to OLCC that will look at that. Our job is primarily to do a background check on the applicant. I would like to see, is the applicant here? Is the applicant for the Romero's Cantino on site? I had some questions. Then, we could pull it off and
Well, I wonder if the chief could tell me how many other locations in Woodburn have the same situation, or is this an anomaly for serving alcohol at a site? Is this unusual?
it is unusual, but
It is unusual. Thank you. Sorry, Jason Milliken again. We have the same concerns. And this is the only food court area we have where somebody wants to serve alcohol. Working with our city attorney, even though we have concerns, we just can't find a legitimate reason to deny it legally. Do we have concerns? Yes. Will we work with OLCC? Yes. Because it's going to be an interesting mix, because we'll have, the trailer, if you will, and a seating area, but the concern is they can move freely from food court to trailer to get. That's where we have concerns, because also, as you may know, the parking's right in the middle. People pull in, pull out. So although we do have concerns, we did not have a legal reason to deny it, but it's something that we will monitor and work with
Okay.
OLCC on.
Thank you.
Chief, if I could quickly jump on too, just because we have a large audience tonight.
Yeah.
The city council's consideration of liquor licenses is just an advisory. It's not an approval or denial.
Right.
It goes on to OLCC, who makes the final issuance of any permit. And they are notoriously and historically known to overturn any objections from City of Woodburn or any other municipality. So,
That is correct.
yeah, just not to be confused with the authority to actually deny a permit.
Right.
so as an advisory committee, I would like to make the recommendation to OLCC and to the liquor license owner that they do put some type of secluded area for passing out or consumption of alcohol. It's not something that we allow any place in the city someone to walk around with a beer. I don't mind somebody having a beer and a hamburger. I enjoy it myself. But that aside, we don't want to open that up for something in the future.
Agreed, and that's where our concerns are.
So, yeah, if that can be part of the written format going to OLCC, that we're request the owner to realize it's advisory, but on the opinion of the part of the city council, I don't know if the whole council is in agreement with me on this, but I'd like to at least put that in writing to the owner.
Yeah,
Okay.
agreed.
Thank you.
I just had one more general question regarding that, because now this food court is there. He's the first one. It would be up again, the state liquor folks, to allow a second business to have it. So then there's no limit as to one can have it and the other one can't. So that could come up again, a liquor license from one
Absolutely.
of the other trucks coming up again.
That is correct.
And so there's no way for us to build any foundational, guidelines to help sort of, I strongly agree that we need to request or recommend the barriers and the things of that, that you would see in other places when that is allowed. But it's just such a small area for so many things to happen.
Yeah, what I can tell the council this evening is, like Scott mentioned, our role is very limited in our recommendation process. And so the OLCC has laid out our obligation in vetting the applicant related to like criminal background check and things that go to the applicant's, past business behavior, whether or not they've had issues serving under a different alcohol permit in the past. So that's really our vetting process in making our recommendation. And then OLCC preempts local control over things like operational aspects of the business itself. And they have very, very specific rules that, kind of outline things like barriers, signage. So, whether or not there's a 21 and over sign, all of those operational components are things that OLCC regulates. And they've told local jurisdictions, this is our area. And, yes, you can give us recommendations. Unfortunately, they're going to say these are our rules and these are the business requirements to follow, and local control isn't going to come into play there. So again, our role is very, very limited in making this recommendation, and on the legal basis for those recommendation criteria, this applicant has met those.
Got it. Okay. Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
With that, I would entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Mr. Mayor, I move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, signify with an aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on, we do not have any table business. Next up is a public hearing, which I want to first thank everybody for coming to our meeting tonight. And a lot of you, I know, have things to say, one side or the other. We'll try and give everybody an opportunity to speak. I will limit that to 3 minutes. I request that you come up and speak closely to the microphone so we can hear what you say and the audience can hear what you have to say. Did we get the video going outside?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I've been told that the audio is heard in the hallway and
it's got sound?
Conference rooms, we had people set
and
up
people in
and
the
they're watching.
and in the conference rooms watching.
So okay.
Sure. Well, I don't see anybody waving at me in the hallway, so I assume they can hear us in real time.
If you don't mind,
Yes,
Mr. Mayor,
that
so
one,
when you
yes.
call people up when we get to that portion of the hearing,
Oh.
you might want to give them an extra moment to walk up the hallway.
Of course.
Call them up and-
Of course.
Thank you.
So I will ask, as we get into the part from the public speaking, that it's not going to do us any good to hear 10 people say the same thing. So if we got, you can just come up and say you agree with what Lindsay said, or you're definitely opposed to it, or you agree with it for whatever reason. But we don't need to go on and on. That might help the proceedings. So with that, I will ask for any declarations or potential conflicts of interest from the council. I will start as if I can say I'm very familiar with the property. I was there on it before the bank bombing, after the bank bombing, when they've cleared it up. I have talked to a few people in the city regarding started to ask about the procedure, and I invited them to this meeting tonight. So I personally don't have any personal conflicts, one side or the other, with this issue. Anything?
I'm very well aware of the property, and I did have an issue, and it was with tree removal. And I presented that to the council at one time, and that's my involvement with the property.
Okay. Councilman Cordwell?
I'm very familiar with the property as well, and I also was a teacher to Rosa Reyes, and she's very much involved, or was involved with this property at one time.
Thank you. Councilman Rowe? Anything?
I used to go to the Wells Fargo Bank, but other than that, no contact.
Same here. Councilman Canty?
Same as Counselor Welk.
Well, I used to be going to Mid-Valley Community Bank when it was Mid-Valley
Back in the
Community
day.
Bank. And so I am familiar with that and as the property has been changing. That's all.
Okay.
Can we have people speak up, please, or
Yes.
turn the volume up? Thank you.
Just make sure you
Thank
speak
you.
into
Yeah.
the microphones.
Yeah, I'd ask the audience to speak up when they get up here, but it's also for the council. We have a lot of, we've never had this place so full before. So thank you for coming. We don't have this kind of opportunity to talk to everybody. We appreciate input from the city, but yeah, just remind us to also we can speak up so you can hear us. So we've talked about potential conflicts, ex parte contacts, site visits. Are there any challenges to anyone on the council? Then we have a public hearing statement that I would ask our city recorder to share.
Both Oregon law and the Woodburn Development Ordinance govern evidentiary quasi-judicial land use hearings and require that at the commencement of the hearing, this statement be read to all persons in attendance. The applicable substantive criteria for this land use decision are listed in the staff report and are as follows. Transportation System Plan, Figures 1, 4, and 7. Woodburn Development Ordinance Sections 1.02, 1.04, 2.1.05, 2.03, 2.06, 3.01 through 3.07, 3.11, 4.01, 4.02, 5.03.01, 5.03.02, 5.03.03, and 5.03.05. The hearing will proceed in the following general order: staff report, applicant's presentation, testimony in favor of the application, testimony in opposition to the application, rebuttal, closure of record, deliberation, and decision. All testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward the applicable substantive criteria just stated or other criteria in a plan or land use regulation that the person believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Failure of the applicant to raise a constitutional or other issue relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Any party wanting a continuance or to keep the record open must make that request while the record is open.
Thank you. So one thing I didn't say was actually what the public hearing regarded, and we had the statement, but actually we're here to decide on the appeal of the Planning Commission's approval with conditions of the U.S. Market Gas Station development at 2540 and 2600 Newburgh Highway. So with that, then we'll move on to our staff report.
Good evening, Council and members of the public. My name is Colin Cortez. I'm Senior Planner here at the City of Woodburn in the Community Development Department. I'll start off with some background, primarily for the benefit of the Council, since many people in the room have some familiarity with the project. The basics before you are that the Planning Commission made an approval of a proposed development. Someone appealed that decision, and so the decision now comes to you as the Council. Most of my presentation will focus on the project itself, primarily so because that's what interests people. So I'll take just a minute to describe the appeal itself verbally. It's very simple in that someone hired an attorney to appeal the decision based on two issues. Number one, the feeling that the project's incompatible with the surrounding neighborhood. And number two, the assertion that essentially the city didn't analyze the project enough before approving it. As you can imagine, staff disagrees very much with the second point. And as far as the first point, staff points out that the Planning Commission considered all the arguments for and against the gas station. It did approve it with a whole host of conditions to mitigate the gas station and make it compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. And that was the basic underlying reason for its approval. So with that context in mind, I'll start talking about the proposed development itself. As a formality, all of the written material up to this point, leading up to the Planning Commission hearing and up to this point, including testimonies entered into the record. 2 pieces of testimony came in before the staff report went out. They're part of the packet. And then staff got 2 additional communications today that were made available between Heather and myself to you earlier, and were posted online as well. One was a letter in support of the project, and one was a letter against the project. Oh, I just anticipated the next slide. Other than that, we did get a phone call from someone who had attended the Planning Commission meeting. She called primarily because she couldn't come physically to City Hall today, and she doesn't do email, but she wanted staff to pass along her opposition to the project. So the project itself, we're dealing with an empty corner property. Used to have 2 bank buildings that were vacant and then demolished a few years ago. The proposal is a gas station with a convenience store, plus some speculative commercial office area. The use of land of a gas station is what's called a conditional use, because the proposal is not only conditional upon special approval by the city, but also it's because within 200 feet of residentially zoned property as proposed for the site. The developer has proposed that the development be phased, by which is meant that the standalone office building at the southwest area of the site, and you'll see a site plan a little later, would be able to be developed later than the gas station. And then, again, staff stresses that the Planning Commission approved the project with conditions, and this is back on October 24th. The approval was with conditions, virtually all the ones that staff recommended, and there was one small change. At some point, there was an idea of having a elevated concrete median between the double yellow lines and Oregon Way to send home the message to large truck drivers to turn left to head to the highway exiting the site. But the commission decided that it was unnecessary, and so what would have been that requirement was removed. So some orientation. On the screen, you see a map of streets and lots. For orientation, parks are colored in green. City Hall is the reddish area in the center. And then the site we're talking about is colored in green, and also its vicinity is circled. This is an aerial view from a few years back, showing the property and its vicinity. And then the next slide is a close-up, along with an excerpt of the zoning map. So the property, as I mentioned, is zoned commercial at the edge of the commercial node that surrounds the interchange area, and does abut 2 houses in senior estates, as well as the Panner condominiums to the southwest. And on the right, you see the existing condition of the property, which is empty. Also, in terms of context, across Oregon Way are more houses, and to the northwest is the Dairy Queen. These are some Google Street View photos. Again, this is the property following demolition of those vacant bank buildings. This is a view south from Highway 214 along Oregon Way, the property being to the right. And this is on Oregon Way looking north back to Highway 214. And on the left, you can see the existing driveway left over from the banks that the proposed gas station would reuse. This is an older photo. Google Street View had a few photos taken from within the property itself. And this is one showing the condition of the property before the banks were demolished. Useful because it shows the Panner condominiums in the background. So what development did the commission approve? This is a site plan, and I'll take you a minute to tour guide you through it. So you're looking at a flat two-dimensional representation of what the development would be like. So like a bird's eye view in a sense. The buildings are colored the tan color. The landscaping is suggested conceptually with the green highlighting. And then where you see gray is essentially pavement for parking and vehicles moving. So here at the top right, the northeast, that's where the convenience store would be. The front would be to the west, towards the parking area and the fuel pumps. To the south is attached speculative commercial office area, meaning that the developer doesn't have a specific tenant in mind. It's built for speculative purposes. The additional office area is a standalone building of 5,000 square feet at the southwest. Again, speculative. There's no specific tenants proposed. And then the heart of the gas station itself, the fuel pump canopy, is up here towards the northwest, close to the highway. The axis is set up so that traffic heading east on Highway 214 would turn right here into this driveway from the highway. The driveway is one way in only. There's no exiting through that driveway. Traffic heading west on Highway 214 would turn left on Oregon Way and turn right onto the driveway on Oregon Way. And all the traffic that entered the site from the highway would exit through the driveway on Oregon Way, the vast majority of it turning left on Oregon Way to get to Highway 214, per the applicant's traffic study. This is an excerpt of the plans showing what the facades or elevations of the buildings would look like. And then close-ups are in the next slide. This being a conceptual rendering of the convenience store. And the 7-Eleven is conceptual. The application materials do not name a specific tenant for the convenience store. And the Southwest office building would look more or less something like that shown on the screen. As far as process, the staff report sent to the Planning Commission and reattached for the Council contains what are called analyses and findings, which sound like just what they are. So staff made an analysis of all the materials proposed relating to the project, compared them to the city's rules and regulations for development, and then basically found whether a given criteria or standard was met. In the case where it was not, a condition of approval was imposed to have the developer change some aspect of the project to make it conform to city rules in order to eventually build it. As I mentioned earlier, the reason this project has what's called a conditional use review is because of the location. So the site's zoned commercial and could have a number of uses that are permitted by right without any kind of special review. So an example would be a restaurant, a bar, a dry cleaner, those sorts of things. They could go by right anywhere that's zoned general commercial in the city. This specific site, because it is within 200 feet of property that's zoned residential, because it's the gas station, and gas stations become conditional if they're that close, that's why this gas station proposal went through this process. And the Planning Commission deliberated and made a decision that with the conditions that staff had recommended, the project would meet the rules of the city for land development, and so approved it with those conditions. So I'll do a 3-slide summary of what the conditions try to get at, topic-wise. So between the developer, the staff, as well as the Planning Commission, what the approval with conditions would accomplish would be to improve the frontage on Oregon Way for walking and cycling. Today there's a curb-tight sidewalk. There's no planter strip, there's no street trees. The developer would have to demolish the sidewalk, put in a landscape strip of lawn, street trees, and build new wide sidewalk as part of beautifying that frontage. Both yards, the yards along the highway and Oregon Way, would have to be lushly landscaped. The convenience store side and back that would face the adjacent streets have to have a minimum amount of architectural treatment, so they're not hostile or overly blank. There's a lot of window area on the buildings overall, which contribute to a feeling of safety for those going to and from. There's 2 walkways that would connect the sidewalks to the uses on the property. There's a requirement specifically to have a trash receptacle for people going to and from the site, particularly to the convenience store, to lessen the likelihood of litter. There are strict limitations on exterior lighting. There's a requirement to buffer or screen the residences to the southwest and southeast with a wall. The segment of the wall along the condominiums would be minimum 9 feet in height. The city is also collecting what are called fees in lieu, because they're fees in lieu of some kind of physical improvement. So an example is that there are overhead electric power poles along the highway. The normal code standard requires developers to bury them. In this case, the developer asked for an accommodation, and the result of that is the developer is basically paying a lump sum of money to not bury those lines, in excess of $150,000. The highway itself is intended to have planter strips and sidewalk. Much of that area has a wide 8-foot curb-tight sidewalk, no street trees, no planter strip. Similarly, the developer has would pay money to not have to do those physical improvements. So instead of tearing up the sidewalk along the highway and doing the planter strip and street trees, the developer will be paying about $97,000 in lieu of doing that work. That's on top of the electric undergrounding fee in lieu.
Would you give me that again? Say that again.
The fees in lieu for the developer to not do the work, to demolish sidewalk, put in a planter strip, plant street trees, and build new sidewalk, those fees total about $97,000. There'd be a variety of trees on the site, including some evergreens. More trees than usual is required for a property like this. And essentially, the theme is to mitigate the unpleasant aspects of neighboring and patronizing a gas station convenience store. That's the thrust of the conditions that the Planning Commission took as their own when they approved the project. And as a one-slide recap, the major features are having a buffer and screen wall, lots of shrubs and trees, a trash receptacle, limits on lighting, and also I'll add that there are also conditions about operation, specifically that there are limits on how close any sort of vacuum facility can be to the residents to the south. There are specific hours of operation for the vacuum, and also the hours of the convenience store and fuel pumps are limited. Staff can talk more about that later. There's a phasing plan that the developer proposed. As I mentioned, the office building to the southwest could develop later. And the commission did approve the phasing plan with the condition that the developer essentially has to keep that area of the site, clean and up to code, so to speak, just like other property owners in the city, until such time that the office building is built. There's a design review application that came with it, which is essentially the review of the site plan. And overall, the proposal met it with a few conditions relating to technical things like giving the city an easement in order for franchise utilities to install utilities along the right-of-way and to maintain them. I mentioned the street adjustment. This is what the developer used to come to an agreement to pay fees in lieu instead of upgrading the highway frontage, and also allowed the Planning Commission and the developer to establish that Oregon Way be improved with street trees and a wide sidewalk. So speaking of Oregon Way, this is a rendering showing a cross-section of the street as it looks today. So this is as if you're looking north, so west is on your left side. There's on the left side, which is the site, there's just the existing curb-tight 5-foot sidewalk today, and there's a 2-lane street, and towards the highway, there's a left turn lane. On the next slide, you'll see what's required as the condition, which is the developer will be dedicating additional right-of-way on the west side, and as part of that, we'll be demolishing the skimpy sidewalk, putting in a planter strip with the street trees, and building a new wide 8-foot sidewalk. And this will be the condition resulting from the development. And this slide compares what exists today on the left, which what the developer is required to do on the right for Oregon Way. There are also some conditions of approval about transportation. As far as all things traffic, the traffic study identified some higher than usual crash rates in the vicinity. And so the conditions of approval collect money to address how the Oregon Department of Transportation, in partnership with the city, might be able to reduce the crash rates at 3 intersections close to the site. As far as capacity, the simple summary is that The intersections in the vicinity of the proposed development would continue to function well enough, even with the development, per the traffic engineer. And this map shows the 3 intersections for which the developer would be contributing money towards safety. Oregon Way, Evergreen, and the interchange all along Highway 214. The developer will also be giving about $15,000 in lieu of a bus shelter. There's a bus stop across from the site on the east side of Oregon Way, but the right-of-way is simply too narrow to put in an actual shelter. So as a result of that, the developer will be paying for a shelter that the city could choose to put anywhere in town. And to summarize, as far as a gas station, staff knows that they could fail to be compatible with residences, and the recommended conditions of approval that the commission approved mitigate the unpleasant aspects of neighboring and patronizing a gas station and convenience store. There are conditions related to transportation that collect monies towards public improvements generally elsewhere in town. I mentioned the highway frontage, the fees and lieu relating to that. And the developer will still be doing some physical improvement that's most visible to the public along Oregon Way that will be the new planter strip and street trees that I mentioned earlier. Now, I'll skip that. We may need that later. If there are any questions you have right away before you get into deliberation and before the applicant and appellant get introduced, I'll be happy to do my best to answer them.
Does council have questions of staff?
I just wanted to have one quick question.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
In that Oregon Way picture, is that 2 lanes coming out and 1 lane going in? I wasn't.
Out of the parking lot?
Right there, that one.
Yes. Oh.
So there's 2 going in or out?
It's a 2-lane road, and towards
what I'm saying, into the gas station.
Oh, the driveway.
The driveway in the gas station.
Yes.
So the driveway in the gas station said it only has the one entrance into the gas station. I just wanted to clarify that picture. So is there 2 lanes coming out or 2 lanes coming in?
Yeah,
You have 3.
I'll use this image to show. So here at the central right, that's the Oregon Way driveway. There's 1 lane for inbound traffic, and then 1 lane going out. There's no turn lane or turn pocket in the driveway.
That picture that you were looking at, Oregon Way, is Oregon Way onto Highway 214.
Oh,
So it's a different illustration.
So the illustration, go to the next one.
that was confusing.
That's okay. So just to help, and again, Chris Kirk, Community Development Director, that graphic is showing, imagine you're standing on the center line of Oregon Way looking north. So you're looking at, on the east side is on the right side of that picture, let's say, where the gentleman's walking on a sidewalk. Then you have a through lane going north, you see the tail lights. Then you've got a left turn lane and then headlights coming at you because you're standing sort of on the center line looking north, standing in the middle of Oregon Way.
Oh, that's Oregon Way.
And so you can see the cross section of the street and what kind of improvements are there.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
You had mentioned the fee in lieu, like the one for no bus shelter, the fee in lieu could be used so that we could put a bus shelter somewhere else.
That's
the
correct.
other 2 fee in lieus,
Yeah.
would those do the same thing, that we could, if they're doing a fee in lieu of burying electrical lines, we take that and then we could bury electrical lines somewhere else?
That's correct.
Is that exactly what that's for?
That's
We're not
right.
going to take that money and just blow it.
Hopefully not, yes.
We're going to use it specifically for that reason, that they don't want to do this, they want to pay that fee. We're going to use it specifically for that same reason somewhere else in the city.
So it cannot go into the general fund.
Right.
So just for clarity, we actually have a specialized funds for these when we collect these conditions of approval. It goes in for specific purposes.
Perfect.
Transit, sidewalk, trees, et cetera.
Thank you.
Okay, I had a question, Colin, about the fee in lieu. Also with the trees, because Oregon Way picture you showed a sidewalk with a planting strip outside of the sidewalk. But as I understood when the mayor asked you about it, they were choosing not to do anything with the sidewalk. So is that the sidewalk along 214 that they weren't going to change, or?
Yeah, the highway frontage that you see today will remain as is, And that's why the developer is paying fees in lieu of not doing anything with it.
And that means there'll be no trees planted on that side of the,
In the right-of-way, there won't be any trees, but in the yard of the development, on the private side of the property line, there would be landscaping, yes.
that's unfortunate.
Two quick questions. So there's 2 office buildings and there's a convenience store proposed. Those are outright permitted uses in this zone. So there's no conditional use concerning them. It's only the gas station.
You are correct. I will add that the reason the whole thing is looked at as a package is because the development ordinance sets up what we call the consolidated or holistic review. So if it's basically a project, all the applications and uses associated with it get looked at as a thing, as something integral.
Okay. So with respect to the office buildings, are there any guidance as to what must or must not go in there? Must it be office space? It couldn't be other, like commercially appropriate, like a laundromat or a restaurant? I mean, it's designated as an office building, so does that mean they're locked into leasing that out as office space?
No, and I'll add that there is a very long condition that addresses potential changes by the developer or future landowners, and some of that addresses how much scope of change there can be for those office areas before the city would have to do a special review again.
Okay. The second question has to do with the exit onto Oregon Way. And I think in terms of our Safeway store and trying to turn left onto Highway 211, and what a nightmare that can be at times. And I do have a concern about traffic backing up onto within this property and getting off onto Oregon Way at the traffic light and making their turn. Has there been any study on that issue in particular?
As you can imagine, there was indeed a traffic study, and there was back and forth between opposition and the applicant and dueling traffic engineers, and the city had its own consultant in terms of traffic. So I guess the shortest answer I can give is that the left turn lane to the highway can accommodate like 6 vehicles, and the studies show that it'll work well the vast majority of the time. That's a very gross summary, since I'm not a traffic engineer.
Yeah.
And then I'll add that staff's giving the background of the project, and since it's an appeal, it's going to be up to the appellant to make a good case tonight, as well as the applicant to defend the planning commission approval.
One last question in follow-up, because I was wondering if we were going to hear now or later from the applicant about the actual impact, not only on Oregon Way, but I'm concerned not size vehicular traffic, but within the property itself and the queuing and the signage, because we all know the tendency of folks. You know, if you only have one way in and one way out, and there's a gas station over there, how are they going to get there? And I think, I don't know if it's you or the applicant that will explain to us the signage. I saw in the packet that there was going to be, there was queuing, you know, how that was going to be done. There was signage that was going to be put on to ensure that there's safety even within this property. I see, you know, how when you're going to get people around safely without them crashing into each other. You know, the space looks small to me, but I'm not a gas station operator. I'm concerned about the impact as they're exiting Oregon Way and the impact as they're maneuvering within the property to get in and out for services. And how is that being addressed? Will the applicant address that, or have you, is that, do you understand my question?
Oh, yes, very much so. The issue had come up before, of course, and yes, the applicant can speak to that, having done a queuing plan, as it's called.
Playing off of Councilor Grijalva, the one-way in, as we all know, there's always those people that, I don't follow that arrow. So my suggestion is maybe they need to put those spikes in so people that try to go out the wrong way will remember never to do that again. And that's a suggestion.
I can only say when the applicant speaks, you can propose it and see how it goes.
Mr. Mayor, can I just a quick clarifying question, Colin? So I want to go back to the undergrounding of utilities and the other right-of-way improvements on the highway and the landscaping, for example. Are those fees in lieu of based on the actual ability to underground utilities there, based on the placement of electrical boxes? I know we've run into that before. Or is there right-of-way width issues between the highway and the property that prohibit those types of landscaping? I guess, how did that decision get made?
It started with the developer choosing to apply for what's called a street adjustment, which I guess the word I would use is a deviation from the development ordinance specific to street frontage improvements. And the main point of the developer's argument was it's kind of complicated and costs a lot, and I prefer not to do it, which probably wouldn't surprise anyone. But it started the process of the city saying, well, if you want the city to give you approval for this, you got to give us something. What are you offering? And so that haggling went on, well, the first time 2 years ago when the gas station was first attempted, and continued with this new application up to and through Planning Commission. And the basis is basically along the lines of, if the city built some of the stuff on its own, about how much does it cost typically to do this work? How much frontage are we talking about? How much depth? And then did some calculations based on that to arrive at the numbers, which was documented in the staff report.
And maybe I can kind of tag along to that, Colin, correct me if I'm wrong. The real difference between what's required there at 214 under the code and what's being proposed as, again, an adjustment. An adjustment doesn't mean they're providing less. It means they're providing an alternative means of providing the same requirements that we have. So instead of a curb-tight 6-foot landscape strip and then a sidewalk behind it, in this case, it's, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Colin, it's keeping the existing facilities out there so they aren't torn up because they aren't that old, and providing a wider, greater landscaping on the backside of, I think, 13 feet, I could be incorrect, on the backside. So the landscape buffer, the landscape width along 214 is wider, but the sidewalk's not in the location proposed under the code, but it's the same width. Is that right?
Yeah, it's true. There's another condition that makes the yard along the highway deeper. So the curb for the parking area, the vehicular area is set back more, so there'll be more room for lawn and hedgerows and trees.
Colin, do you know how long this property has been zoned commercial?
Ooh, I don't know, but I think it may predate the WDO, which was first adopted in 2002, so quite a while.
Colin, I have a question about when the traffic analysis was done. Was that prior to the Dutch Brothers popularity, where everything gets backed up on 214 with the Dutch Brothers, and then thinking about traffic trying to get into this service station? I'm just curious about that.
The applicant's traffic engineer collected data, and because Dutch Brothers has existed quite a while, it had existed before, even 2-3 years ago. The Dutch Brothers is part of the background existing situation that was included in the traffic modeling by the applicant's engineer.
Okay, and then as far as the Dairy Queen, right there. Now, will there be any entrance into that, into the Dairy Queen?
No, there's no change required. The Dairy Queen's not part of the application, and no one's forcing this developer to go onto that property to change anything physically, so no.
Okay, I didn't think so, but I just wanted to be clear on that.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you. Stick around, something might come up. So then I'd like to hear from the applicant, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. For the record, my name is Mark Shipman. I'm a land use attorney with Sawfeld Griggs, PC. in Salem, Oregon, 250 Church Street, Southeast, Suite 200, 97301. Here this evening on behalf of both the applicant and the property owner in this case. Also with me here this evening, to my right, your left, is our traffic consultant, Joe Bessman, with Transite Consulting. Because of all the traffic questions that you had initially, I thought it would be best to have Joe come up now and to address any questions that you have rather than on rebuttal. Also here with me this evening is the team architect, Kevin Gerlitz, and our property owner, Don Sadu. So why are we so passionate about this property and this project? Well, a lot of it revolves around Don. He's the president of U.S. Markets, and he intends this property to be a showcase for Woodburn and for the U.S. Market brand. Don lives here in Woodburn. He's a resident. He's been here more than 20 years. And I think that that speaks to a lot as to why he and his family want to locate this U.S. Market, the C-store, and the gas station at this location. Everyone knows the problems that the community's had with ARCO and the pricing. I'm going to get into that in a little bit later, and the lack of external signage for their pricing. One of the ways to combat this is by approving this gas station, allowing for competition. Because I think, as you'll see from the pricing study that we've done, there's a big difference in pricing between what Chevron, ARCO, and what others along the I-5 corridor price their fuel at. This property has been vacant for a few years, and it's time to put a positive business on the property. The project, as Colin noted, has had substantial input from your professional staff, which the Planning Commission has agreed with. So I want to talk about briefly what's the differences between this application as compared to what was approved and denied by you in 2022. First of all, with respect to the site considerations, it's the right in. And previously it was right in, right out. This time it's right in. And Joe can speak to the reasons why that driveway is going to be designed the way it is. It's a unique design, specifically intended to restrict any right out onto Highway 214. It comes with a modified curb that won't allow that, and Joe can talk about that. There's a couple other key aspects. ODOT has approved our access. They've given us an access permit for this location, okay? Our traffic report has been peer-reviewed by the City of Woodburn's Traffic Engineering, and that's DKS Engineers. They're a solid engineering firm based out of Salem and Portland that did a thorough job with respect to Transite's traffic review. Also, Chevron and ARCO's traffic consultant found our traffic study to be reasonable and consistent with the city's applicable policies, and agreed with our consultant's recommendations for the traffic study. Other key factors are we're reducing the number of evergreen trees in the landscape plan. We're increasing the use of deciduous trees, both on site and in the yards along Highway 214 and Oregon Way, and also providing payment and fees in lieu, which have been discussed. Councilor Cornwell, I wanted to address your question with respect to why weren't we putting landscaping right up along the street, and ODOT prohibited it. So that's the reason why we had to go inside our property, and thus we went with the larger, as Colin noted, the deeper landscape buffer strip area along our property, because ODOT prohibited any landscaping curb tight on 214. And the other thing that was also brought up is, if you take a look at the landscape plan, or the site plan, if Colin can pull that up real quick, staff noted that they didn't want to affect the existing improvements were there, and not only that, but it would, if that you did have landscaping curb tight, that would meant that the sidewalk would have been brought in, and they didn't want to have the sidewalk jogging at that location. Other items noted that changed with respect to the current plan as opposed to the prior plan was, as noted by staff, is relocating the propane and air pump equipment to the northwest corner of tax lot 3700. And tax lot 3700 is where the office building and the fuel pumps are. We're dedicating 2 parking spaces in front of the proposed office building on tax lot 3700 as carpool spaces. We've modified the traffic circulation plan internally on the property. And finally, there's new conditions of approval that were imposed, that were recommended by staff and imposed by the Planning Commission, that provide for additional mitigation of the aspects relating to the gas station and surrounding neighborhood. All of these elements add up to a different application, which garnered support by staff and the Planning Commission. So why do we have to file for the conditional use permit? And I think it's been brought up a couple times. We're less than 200 feet from a residential zone, and actually we're 160 feet, so 20%. So that's what we're talking about here, is that we're 160 feet both to the east to residential zoning and 160 feet to the south to residential zoning from the fuel pump. Gas stations in this zone are permitted by right, but those less than 200 feet are also legally permitted. And your conditional use permit provisions in your code are a bit unique. Specifically, they allow the subject to the application of conditions of approval needed to either conform with the obligations of the code, which we're doing in this case, or to offset impacts and make the use as compatible as practicable with the surrounding uses. This is what your code allows, and this is what staff and the Planning Commission have done in reviewing our application. They've reviewed the design standards and criteria, and they've taken a look at the conditions of approval to make the gas station as practically compatible with the residential uses in the south and east as much as possible. Your code does not require absolute compatibility, and that's important to know. So the question before you this evening is not, if the gas station should be allowed, but really under what conditions is it permitted? That's what we'd like you to look at it. So why should you approve this conditional use permit? Well, your staff recommended, approval of the conditional use permit is based on the fact that it satisfies the mandatory approval criteria in your code. Your code is dense. There's a lot there to the code. And not only is there a lot of requirements and criteria in your code, but we had to provide substantial evidence to address all those criteria, which we've done. Staff, in addition, and the Planning Commission imposed 30 conditions of approval on us. 30. And they're substantial. They're not light. Okay? So if you look through your packet, you notice those conditions of approval, they didn't go lightly on the applicant. Those conditions of approval are important because they offset the effects that the gas station could have on the residential uses, again, as practically as possible. So your Planning Commission agreed with your staff after the hearing on all the testimony and evidence before them and approved the conditional use permit, subject to those conditions of approval. So we've prepared some supplemental findings, and I'd like to be able to get those to staff now. We've prepared supplemental findings along with a transmittal letter for you. In the packet that I'm handing out to you, there's a copy for the recording clerk.
Thank you.
As well, and for staff. The other thing that we've provided in the packet, and the interesting thing about the summary of the issues and responsive findings, this essentially brings us up to date to tonight with respect to supporting the application. And on behalf of the applicant and the property owner, we're prepared to defend this decision, assuming you approve it on appeal, if it does go up on appeal. So that's a big part of your packet. The other important part of your packet is a list of fuel prices. And what U.S. Market did is they went out and they surveyed fuel prices from Aurora to Brooks to Woodburn, of the TA Express, Flying J, Pilot and Brooks, U.S. Market and Brooks, Arco, and Chevron on December 20th, the 23rd of December, January 3rd, and January 6th of this year. And what they've done is they've taken a look and they've essentially jotted down through both photographs and also in a narrative in writing there the different prices of the fueling stations. And I think that you can see that based on those fuel prices, that out of all the prices, the ones that are the most significant are the Chevron at Woodburn and the Arco at Woodburn. Even though Arcos are not listed as signs on the property. They are at the pump by law, and you can see the difference in pricing. The real reason that, one of the key reasons I would say, not the real reason, but one of the key reasons of this application is that neither Chevron nor ARCO want U.S. Market to go in. And the big reason is based on pricing. These guys are heavily competitive, and without someone like U.S. Market in this region in Woodburn, there's no incentive for Chevron or ARCO to change their practices or their policies. The process that we've been involved with in this second application in 2024 has been challenging. There's no question about it. There's times that we wanted to use design for certain elements of the site plan, and staff pushed back against that. And they pushed back time and time again. And they said, you need to redo this. And we did. And then he said, you need to redo this. And we did. And they said, you need to do it differently. And we did. Which ultimately, I believe, will result in a better product for the community. So the reason you should move forward with approving our request per staff recommendations with the proposed conditions of approval as identified by staff is we satisfy all the code requirements in your code. We are not exacerbating any preconditions that are there on Highway 214 or Oregon Way. We are not only mitigating our potential impacts from the gas station, but we're also resolving pre-existing conditions present in the city of Woodburn at this location at this time. We actually, in some cases, have less impact with the gas station and the convenience store than other permitted uses. Colin noted earlier in his presentation with respect to permitted uses and what was permitted out there on the property, he identified two key uses, right? He identified a restaurant and he identified a bar or a tavern. Well, if I would ask Joe, what drives more traffic? Is that a gas station or is that a restaurant or a tavern? He will tell you that day in and day out, a restaurant and a tavern will drive more traffic out of this property onto Oregon Way than the gas station. So I think that's interesting for you to note, is that this proposed use would actually have less of an impact than other permitted uses that the Sadoo family could just put on this general commercially zoned property right now. On balance, this is a good request. And I'm saying on balance, because that's what we're looking at here. And I think it should be approved, as noted by the Planning Commission. At this time, I'd like to have Joe talk about traffic, talk about access, address the questions that you have. And then if you have any specific questions of myself or of Joe, we'd be happy to answer them before we turn this over to others. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, councilors. Again, for the record, Joe Bestman, Transite Consulting. Thanks for letting me be here tonight and to speak on the traffic issues. I think I've heard your questions, and I'll do my best to try and get through them. And if I miss anything, feel free to let me know, and I'll go back and get back to it.
Mr. Beckford, before you get going, what are your qualifications as a traffic consultant?
I'm a professional traffic engineer. I've been one since 2002, so 23 years now.
Okay. Thank you.
And I've probably worked on 30 fuel stations in the last 5 years, so I'm very experienced with this type of development and very experienced throughout the state.
Okay. Thank you.
So what I'd say first is on access. There's a lot of concerns about why is it right-in only? When we first came and presented this project, we had a right-in, right-out access. The concern was traffic making a right-out onto Highway 214 would then be weaving across the lanes on the highway, trying to get into the left turn lane and trying to make a U-turn at the Oregon Way traffic signal. There was a lot of concerns from this council about that maneuver and about the safety of that. So working with ODOT, we modified that to a right turn in only. And we actually got that re-permitted and approved by the state traffic engineer saying, yes, this is an overall benefit to the transportation system if we can bring eastbound traffic on 214 into the site and take all that traffic onto Oregon Way to get out. The reason it would leave on Oregon Way is Oregon Way carries a lot less volume than the highway. It's a lot easier to make those left turns. And then you have a traffic signal to turn safely left and get back towards I-5 if that's where you're coming from, or to continue east. So that was really the basis of the access. When you're asking about the capacity, does it have capacity to function? Look at your other fuel centers that are even closer to the I-5 corridor that have a single access point. Here we've got an ingress and we've got a signalized egress effectively with the Oregon Way traffic signal, so we have a lot of capacity. And when you look at the queues on Oregon Way, most of the time it's 1 car, 2 car, and I can say that having sat there for quite a while during the peak. Today, the last time I was here in town, the time before that, Oregon Way is not carrying a huge amount of traffic where it's generating these very long queues. And all the reviews have confirmed that we can make this work. When you do have those occasional queues that are longer, as soon as that light turns green, those queues are clearing. This signal is not failing. It's clearing the queues every single signal cycle. And that allows those vehicles to then maneuver. We heard a lot of good comments at the Planning Commission meeting and even previously from the public, and a lot of concerns about traffic on Oregon Way, traffic going too fast, traffic speeding, traffic volumes, trucks. And so we even came back and proposed putting in traffic calming on Oregon Way south of our site so that as traffic does increase, that at least it's staying consistent with that posted 25-mile-an-hour speed, and it's consistent with those neighborhoods. And we proposed putting that traffic calming north of the Oregon Court intersection where other neighbors have voiced concerns about sight lines around the curves. So again, we think we're mitigating our impacts and providing some additional value and benefit to the community to address existing concerns. In terms of the Dairy Queen, there was a question about whether we'd connect to it. We're not going to connect directly to Dairy Queen, but we're putting in a cross-access easement along our western border so that if Dairy Queen redevelops in the future, there is an opportunity for someone to get ice cream and fuel without going back onto the highway and having to come all the way around. So we're hoping that we can help clean up the access with these adjacent uses and make this whole system work better. And ODOT's very happy with that approach, and that's why they've given us the permitted access points. In terms of spike strips and trying to enforce the right and only, I fueled up my truck today. My truck cost me $120 in gas. And when I buy new tires, that's about $1,500. What I would say is, we've designed this driveway to help enforce those movements, to really channelize it. So if someone wants to leave the site and go the wrong direction, they're going past do not enter signs, they're going past one-way stencils on the ground, and they know they're in the wrong at that point. In addition, in order to make that movement, they now have to make this really elongated turn. So I think what we've done is we've designed an access that ODOT feels can adequately mitigate that likelihood. Will there be crazy and dumb people that try and do that anyway? There always are. And we've got a design that we think can work to the best of our benefit. But we don't want someone who's lost and confused having their tires slashed, because that is a really big bill to pay. And so we're not proposing spikes or anything that would be spiteful in a way for someone who gets lost. But we have made it abundantly clear. So within the site, there's signage telling you how to get back to the I-5 corridor. There's I-5 signs, there's one way, do not enter, no trucks turning right on Oregon Way, all the things that you would expect for this to work. And so that's why we have staff support, ODOT support, the city's consultant report, the opposition engineer supporting what we've said here. So I think we've addressed all the concerns. The last comment, I think, was in terms of internal circulation and how does it work. One of the other things that you see with these other fuel centers when you look at them is they don't have dedicated places for trucks to load the fuel tanks or for delivery vehicles to park. We've got dedicated spots for delivery vehicles to park, for fuel vehicles to park. We've got a schedule that's been coordinated to make sure that multiple trucks aren't trying to deliver all at once, that we've got those figured out across the day, how to make those deliveries occur without impacts during the peak hours. We have storage for 18 vehicles to be fueling at once, which is really unheard of when you look at other fuel stations. It's not because we expect 18 vehicles to fuel at once, but it's that we can accommodate those. Or if that RV pulls up, we have the adequate space for that vehicle, and by the way, many other pumps for the rest of the vehicle. So we've got a design that works. We have one-way flow at the pumps. It's not, you can't enter from both sides. That way, if someone's parking at the convenience store, they can still back out. The vehicle's leaving the pumps. They have to yield, as any stopped vehicle does, before they maneuver. Bottom line is, I think it's a much better design than anything you'll see around here, and I'm very confident it's going to work well. Happy to answer any questions.
There was a diagram in our packet that showed like the amount of cars in the queuing, the amount of cars that like could come in, and visually it looked like there was a lot. Is there a number of the amount of cars, like if it starts to get backed up, trying to exit onto Oregon Way, like how many cars could be, in theory, in that parking lot?
So what we looked at within the architectural drawing, Ron Ped looked at just placing vehicles on there, and it's not representative of the spacing. It was more just an icon to show that within these pumps you could put the 18 vehicles in there and still have plenty of space in these maneuver aisles to get in and out of the site without any blockage at all. So I think for any typical, even atypical queuing scenario, there's enough space and wide enough drive aisles for vehicles to pass, to queue, to store, to do all the things.
So do I understand you correctly that you said that the people that are pumping in, you have 6 stations, 12 pumps, correct?
Correct.
And are they all expected to go one way?
Yes.
So they cannot, where sometimes you've got cars coming this way and cars coming in that way, and now you've got this situation at your station, one pump pumping and one. So there is clear, that's my concern, is the impact, and that there is safety within the site that isn't going to jam up the exit, the only one exit. Does that make sense?
That makes complete sense. So yeah, unlike the other fuel centers we have in town, these are going to be marked one way. It's going to be an eastbound flow, so heading towards the convenience center. The reason is it gives you enough space from the convenience center parking lot for those vehicles to park out without ever impacting those vehicles that are fueling. It just makes it cleaner and simpler for everybody.
Exactly. You wouldn't want someone trying to maneuver to come out the door when they came in the wrong way.
Correct.
And that's what I'm concerned about too. And then the queuing, waiting to get onto Oregon Way to get onto 214.
Yeah, the queuing to get onto onto Oregon Way can handle what we would expect for a typical queue. Again, the higher delays is what you're going to experience trying to get onto the highway. It's the signal, it's the northbound queue trying to get onto 214. When we looked at the queuing analysis for the exit, it was 1 or 2 vehicles, and so we're very confident we can make that function. And by keeping it narrow, by having only a single inbound and outbound lane, if anyone is walking by that driveway, it's better sight lines, just safer and slower overall. That's why we didn't try and do 3 outbound lanes leaving the site.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All I can say is 18 is a lot of fills. That's more than Safeway has even.
No, it's
astounding.
12, isn't it?
That's astounding.
Yeah, and I've worked on Costco fuel centers and Safeway and Fred Meyer, and this is not any one of those. So even though we have the queue storage for those, the type of turnover you see at a U.S. market isn't on the same level as a discount superstore fuel center.
What are you planning for underground tank storage?
No.
I mean, excuse me, come on. Here. Mark, do you want to hand back? My name is Kevin Gerlitz. I'm with Ronald James Pett Architect, working on the project. I've done the majority of the drawings and a lot of the design work. In terms of the fuel storage tanks, I don't remember exactly which ones we've gone with, but they're double-walled tanks. They're up to industry standards. I guess I don't know what else to say about them necessarily.
You can tell me how big are they? What are you looking at for gallonage? Are you looking at 5,000 gallons a tank, 10,000 gallons a tank?
They're going to be a 2-tank, and they're split 4 different products.
Okay.
So the regular is going to be 20,000 gallons.
Regular is 20,000?
Yes.
Okay.
And clear premium will be 5,000 gallons.
Point of order.
And then.
Could I get your name?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I need your name and.
Don Sidhu.
Okay. Thank you.
And then diesel will be 7,000 gallon, and super will be 8,000 gallons. But they're only 2 tanks. They're split.
Okay. Since we're talking operations, what are you looking at what are you expecting as far as filling these up? How often are you going to go through 20,000 gallons regular?
Yeah, probably every other day load will come. Sometime maybe 3-4 loads a week, which is basically every other day.
And I thought I read something that you're looking at that service happening in the evening?
Yes. When the slowest time of day, and that's when the fuel tanker will come. And gentleman's here from the fuel company, so he'll explain you how they handle everything.
Okay, I'd like to hear that.
Thank you.
I had a comment for you. I can't remember your name, I apologize.
Mr. Shipman?
Yes. You comparing prices with other existing stations is really not an appropriate selling point at this point in time, especially since we don't know what prices are going to be 2-3 years from now when this is complete. And just trying to comparing apples to apples, that's not the point of all these people being here. Yes, we'd all like cheaper gas, but the point of them being here is location. Okay, so to me, that's almost offensive that you keep suggesting that. And also, I'm not hearing anything reciprocity. What are you trying to give back to the neighborhood to make them, okay, we compromise on this, we'll try and get along, we'll try to accept it. We, being in the city of Woodburn, always try to look out for neighbors and be neighborly and helpful, and I have trouble when I see people, although he lives here, but people from out of town coming in and planting themselves here just to perhaps be successfully financially. And the neighbors that live around have to suffer the consequences from, you know, they moved here thinking it would be one way, and then suddenly it's another way, and they feel powerless. And so they all move out, and house values fall, and I'm just looking, what can you give to them to make perhaps them feel better about it? Because I see a lot of, I don't want to say broken hearts, but I see a lot of upset people here tonight. And sure, you've done your work, you've done all the planning, you've done all you need to do, but still you're not reaching the people you need to reach to let them know we'll take care of you, we're here for you, we have your back. Do you see what I'm saying? And you can't guarantee your prices will be cheaper 5 years from now.
Please hold any emotion from the
And this
crowd.
is probably an appropriate time to be saying this altogether. We have discussion later, so I'm sorry. But that's just my point. Comparing prices right now doesn't sell the point at all, to me, anyway.
I understand. Thank you.
Any other questions regarding operations? I did have another one. I saw where the canopy above the pumps is looking, it's like 16 feet.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, what kind of lighting is coming out of that? Is that going to shine on a neighborhood? What's the height of the convenience store that could be blocking that light?
Well, the convenience store is definitely taller than the canopy, and the lighting is recessed into the ceiling of the canopy and is designed to be directed downward. There's actually provisions in the code that prohibit us from using certain lighting because of the proximity to the street and other properties. So
I should trust our codes. Okay. Anything else? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Moving on, we'd like to hear from the appellant, person that appealed the case.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Mick Harris, and I am an attorney at Tonkin Torp. And I, along with my colleague David Peterson, represent the appellant, Paul Kilgore. The address for our firm, for the record, is 888 Southwest 5th Avenue, Suite 1600 in Portland, Oregon, 97204. I appreciate you gathering tonight to hold this hearing. I know there are many, many residents here who wish to speak, and their voices are more important than mine, so I will be as brief as humanly possible. I just want to respond to a couple of comments that were included in the most recent staff report regarding this appeal and share a couple of comments in response to the applicant's presentation just now. First, I would just like to speak to the issue at hand as I believe fairly characterize it, which is a question of compatibility. First and foremost, it seems that there's perhaps a bit of misleading framing around feasibility. Is it possible to make this work? And the question isn't, is it humanly possible? The question is, can it be done in a way that's compatible with the neighborhood? If that wasn't the question at hand, it would be an outright permitted use, and the question of conditional use would be a foregone conclusion. And with that in mind, I do believe that there were a number of comments made in the applicant's presentation that, while perhaps bearing some value, whether it's regarding fuel prices or whether it's regarding other ways that the site could be used, at the end of the day, we're gathered here for your consideration of this specific proposal. And I'll come back to that notion momentarily when discussing some of our concerns about the procedural elements of the staff report. But to run with that for another moment, I think it's important to recognize that this exact proposal, though we would argue a slightly improved version, came before the City Council 2 years ago and was rejected for the compatibility issue above all. And now we would argue that the current design has only been made worse. The reason for the write-in only is an ODOT requirement for highway safety purposes, which is completely valid, but has no bearing on the way that that would impact and overload Oregon Way. You know, ODOT's interest is understandably in the highway safety, but it doesn't translate to what that extra burden might be on Oregon Way. I would also flag that there was a discussion about the Dairy Queen easement. While that's not intended to be put into action in the immediate short term, if that does create cross-use, that could also put even more burden on the site plan for the proposed gas station. So I don't think that should be ignored, even if it's not immediately relevant. I would also just like to speak to some of the non-traffic issues. Understandably, the traffic issues are top of mind for everyone in this room, it would seem, but there are some of the non-traffic concerns that Mayor Lonergan was speaking to a moment ago, at least as far as lighting and smells, noise. I mean, these all go into the compatibility analysis, and so I think it's important that that's kept in mind as well. So I ask that the council consider it through that lens, in keeping with the development ordinance. And as for our second point in our appeal, which was a slightly more technical and procedural one, I don't want to waste anyone's time rehashing the nitty-gritty content of our original August appeal letter. But if the council wishes to review that, you'll see that we did explain specifically what conditions we felt were inappropriately deferring compliance to a future decision by the director, as well as some of our concerns regarding what we felt was an inadequate analysis of the comp plan. And I only point that out because in the most recent staff report, it seemed that there was a question as to whether we had actually substantively addressed that, and I would argue that we have. It would just be in that August letter. So if the council wishes to look to that, we would encourage you to do so and be grateful for your consideration. And then the only other thing that I'll share is I know that the applicant's attorney circulated supplemental findings and a transmittal letter, which I think just happened in real time, which would mean that we haven't had a chance to review that yet. So to the extent that there would be a decision made tonight based on that, we would ask that there be a holding over, and I just haven't seen what that is. So if it was made available earlier, feel free to correct me, but I don't believe so. So I just wanted to flag that from a procedural standpoint. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have and appreciate your time and consideration.
You'd mentioned an August letter. I don't have the August letter. I have a November 12th letter. Are you referring to that one? On August 21st was our original response to the application, and hopefully it could be made available for you. Okay, I'm sure we have that in the packet then. Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any questions from? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Much appreciated. Yes,
just
Councilor.
One brief question. I just want to be clear if I'm understanding you with respect to the materials presented to us by the applicant's attorney tonight. Are you suggesting that you're not having received them would, if we considered them, be an appeal issue for you if the applicant is approved?
Can't hear you.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, if I could remind the council, you have to speak very close to the mic. Thank you.
My apologies. My question is, the materials that were provided by the applicant's attorney this evening, you indicated you hadn't had an opportunity to review them yet, and so my question is whether you would consider that to be an appealable issue if the council were to make a decision supporting this application and relied on that material.
I'm not sure if that's technically a prohibited, must have an opportunity off the top of my head, but I would at the very least ask that we have an opportunity to review that and respond if you were going to make a decision based on those. And it may be that it could pose an appealable issue. So I just don't want to speak definitively and mislead one way or another. So I'm not 100% confident, more just for the sake of equity, being able to review that and respond is appreciated. Sorry to give you a wishy-washy answer, Councilor.
Appreciate it.
But that also brings up something I'd like to ask our attorney. I mean, it's obviously our council has not had time to go through 20-some pages here tonight, and I'm not sure that it's appropriate to even do that at the moment. So what are we looking at here?
Sure. So as well, I haven't reviewed the supplemental findings that have been submitted this evening. The council has a number of choices during their deliberation process in whether or not to adopt the applicant's proposed additional findings. They could still, you as the council could still choose to move forward without accepting those as supplement to staff's findings and based off the applicant's previously submitted materials and application. If you wanted additional time to read through those as part of your deliberative process, then yes, you might want to make that decision before the council itself makes its final decision.
Thank you. So I will leave, as we get into discussion, I'll leave that up to the council to decide what you'd like to do with this added information, if it's necessary. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, moving on, I would like to hear testimony by proponents. This is people that are in favor of the project, and I know that we have people that have signed up. Okay. 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 Got it.
There's about 25 total speakers.
Okay.
How many people in there?
So we have quite a few people that want to speak in favor of this. Like I said before, when I call your name, please come up, speak close to the microphone, as I will. And please, I'm going to limit you to 3 minutes. And for both proponents, and then we'll have opponents after that. Like I say, that I just heard there's about 25 people that have asked to speak. We have other written submittal from other people that I might mention their names that they were here, but had additional information, did not have any additional information what they're expecting to be said. So I will mention their names after we hear from everybody. So first up, and excuse me right now for getting some names wrong. I apologize. I will give it my best. I have Mohan Grenell. Yes, sir. Come on up. First one to raise your hand, so I assume I got your name almost right. No.
Yeah, Mohan Grenell.
Thank you. Please come up and sit down. And
Mr. Mayor, if I could, because we have some people in the other room who may be getting called in, if you called maybe 2 names at once, they could each sit up here and
good idea.
Work through them.
Next up, I have Alma Shineke, and then Rick Haskell. So, sir, you have 3 minutes.
Respected city officials and my fellow citizens, My name is Mohan Grewal. I am next to the property, and I'm watching this property from few years, just empty, and it invites homeless people, garbage accumulation, and other things which brings the property value down. So it's a black spot on our city. When we enter, it's the main artery coming to the city, and that property has to be developed. So it's sitting there for 5 years. When I look at, I'm going to give you example. I worked for quite a big corporation in Portland, and I used to go to Asian countries. I'm giving you very specific example for China. I know you're going to say it's not China, but we need to look at the global, how we are competing with other countries. I used to go there often. When I see every 6 months they have another high-rise building. They build the property so quickly. 20 to 30 years ago, that country was, look where they were. Today, they're trying to get ahead of us. Because of all the red tapes, we are fighting with each other instead of promoting and getting things better for us. So what I would say, that property needs to be get done. It will create more revenue for us, and it will create more employment for us, and it will make the city look better in that neighborhood. And not only that, the people who are investing, they need a return on investment. It will encourage them. 5 years from now, if you look at 5 years, they could have done 5 projects. Look at the GDP for the city, for the state, where we could be. We're still struggling with that first thing. So I'm an investor. I left that job. I'm investing. I'm growing. I want our neighborhood to grow, our people to grow, get better jobs, and make things better for everybody. So another example, which our attorney, I think, said here, look at the pricing. So I never fill my gas here in Woodburn. I go to other surrounding cities and fill the gas because I can save easily 50, 60 cents. Every penny counts. I understand, it's money, some people maybe it's not a big thing, but for me, every penny is important for me to save in this environment. And if we have extra money, we can give money to our elderly people, we can give it to our kids. The kid we saw that earlier, the kid was crying because his friend got killed. We can use that money to give the safety things to our community. Hire more police officers, we need a safety. What we are going through. So please look into this. Basically, I think seems to me it's a win-win situation for both neighborhood as well as for the investor. Let's not fight among ourselves. Instead, let's fight for us and grow our community, our city, and our state. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah. Okay.
I'm actually substituting for Alma. My name's Lorena Silva. I have to go, so I just want to say before I go, it's going to take less than 3 minutes.
Okay.
So I'm for the gas station, and to reply to what Ms. Cornwell said about what they can offer, what this gas station can offer, I have worked in this community for years. I managed both Starbucks and this store for well over 20 years. I know some of you. Gas prices, we can't predict. That you can't speak of. That changes all the time. So I think that is moot. Dawn and Rosa are huge contributors in this community. Their kids have gone to St. Luke's, they've gone to all the schools in here, so what they can give to this community is huge. Dawn respects everyone, and Rosa, they've helped so many people. They've added a water filtration system into St. Luke's. They're great business owners, and they can give so much back to this community. So as far as that goes, yeah, they're just great people, so I don't see anything in that aspect, anything but good coming from them as far as giving back to the community.
May we get your mailing address, please?
Yes, it's P.O. Box 162, Hubbard 97032.
What was your name again?
Lorena Silva, S-I-L-V-A, for the record.
You filled out a
Thank you.
card?
I did, yes.
I don't want to have to call you up later as we get through these.
Well, I'm leaving, so you can call me back.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
I don't see it, but okay, thank you.
Alma
Go ahead.
Shevchenko, mailing 489 Turnberry Avenue, Woodburn, Oregon, 97071.
Got it. Thank you.
I do approve the U.S. markets and the gas station. There's a lot of reasons that can be justified because I think it's gonna grow our Woodburn economic growth, gonna create jobs, it's gonna create revenue for everybody, and it's gonna stimulate, all of our local economies as well. Safety is in accessibility. I am concerned about the Circle K here in Woodburn. There have been reports that they mix water and gas, and they this happened, I think, like in the last recent months, and I can attest to that. My husband owns a auto shop in Hubbard, and he's been fixing over probably like 10 plus vehicles that came from Circle K, and unfortunately, mixed their gas. So it's hard for me to find a reliable source. And of course, ARCO with their scamming and their Chevron and everything, look at their Google reviews, you can see everybody's, they don't put the correct prices and whatsoever. So I think this will be a very reliable source for us, as residents to get gas. And, their convenience store is always, I've been in most of their locations, and they're always been clean. There's no, bums walking around there. It's very controlled, very, very well organized. So I definitely oppose. And then I was here at the last meeting, and I did hear some people saying about, our values of our homes or in the area that are living. I think it's going to appreciate. Why? Because it's going to drive more traffic here to Woodburn. And, the more traffic we have, the more home buyers, will come in the area, especially that we have a lot of new construction, those, apartments that are building. So it's going to drive more business. It's going to appreciate our home prices. So I don't think it's a bad idea. We all want bigger home prices, right? So yeah, I definitely am going forward and would love for you guys to see if you guys can approve this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please hold your clapping. I don't want to go one side to the other on who claps the loudest. So
there goes my applause.
Mr. Haskell?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Next up, I have Myrna Gustart from Troon, and then Marco Sanchez after that. Okay. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Mayor, council people, thank you for letting me have an opportunity to speak to you tonight. I apologize for my voice. I'm fighting a cold and got a little bit of laryngitis. My name is Rick Haskell. I'm a business owner in the city of Woodburn. I also live here. I'm a resident of the city of Woodburn, as are my daughter and her family. And in full transparency to all of you, I am also a neighbor and friend of Don Sadoo. That being said, we are very interested, as are all of you, in what is best for the city of Woodburn. And don't lose sight of the fact that the applicant here is also a resident of the city of Woodburn, has been for a long, long time, and is very interested in how this city does and what's best for this city. They're not a foreign entity that's just looking to subsidize their income. So everyone is looking out for the best interest of Woodburn, which is great. We don't really have any enemies here. The appellant, everybody here wants what's best for the city. There's some disagreement as to what is best for the city. It sounds to me like the biggest concern is the traffic issues here. You bring up the analogy of the Safeway down the road. I would submit to you that that's apples to oranges, because the Safeway down the road is as the traffic engineer discussed, a discount center, and it also has the traffic of the Safeway and the other businesses in that area. A lot more traffic coming out on that road, and the road itself is way more busy. If you want to look for something that's really analogous, take a look at what we already have just a block away from where this project is being proposed, the Chevron station. When you leave the Chevron station, you can't turn left to get back on the freeway. You've got to turn right and then turn left and go down the alley between the Arco and the McDonald's, and then turn left onto Evergreen Road to get out onto, it's the same thing. It's no different at all. And with the way the city of Woodburn is growing right now, developments everywhere. Amazon's going to open up in the spring. There's absolutely a need for another gas station in town. And right now, and with all respect to Ms. Cornwell, as the last person who spoke said, gas prices are important to a lot of us. It is pertinent in this discussion. And right now, the Chevron has a monopoly because nobody's going to the ARCO. Everybody that knows the ARCO and the price gouging they do there won't go there. So Chevron can set their prices wherever they want as long as they're underneath that ARCO, and they're going to be able to get it. So competition is important. It will bring prices down for the residents of the city of Woodburn. It will give us another option for getting gasoline here, and it is a tremendous use of that space that otherwise sits vacant, which is never good for a city.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Tassel. Yes.
Yes.
Myrna?
Good evening. My name is Myrna Gusdorf, and I'm from 665 Troon Avenue. I've lived in Woodburn for 31 years. When I first moved here, the entrance to our city, driving from the freeway, was pretty shabby. We had a lot of rundown derelict buildings and old vacant lots that were full of weeds. It's not that way anymore. We've got a lot of improvements, and I think we have a city we can be proud of. The only place along that street that is still derelict is the lot in question. It's weeds, it's a mess, we see garbage, we see homeless people, we see graffiti, and it's been this way for years and years and years. I think it's time that we put something there that is a benefit to the city. We definitely need the U.S. market as an improvement in our community. The second point I want to make is that I think that we're very fortunate that this is not just another gas station coming to town, bringing their same standard building that fits on whatever lot in whatever city they want to put it in. We have a member of our community that is bringing a plan that fits Woodburn and it fits what we need. It is a well thought out plan, and I personally think it is the perfect answer for this derelict property. It's a benefit to us all. And the third point I want to make is price. And some of the others have been talking about price. And a few minutes ago, someone said price really isn't an issue here. And I think it's a significant issue. Most of us, a lot of people in this room that I have talked to, we don't buy gas in Woodburn, at least not at that end of town, because it's overpriced. If you've been ripped off by the ARCO once, you're never going back. I think it's also important that we remember there are a lot of low-income people in our community who need a reasonably priced gas station and a place that they can purchase gas conveniently on their way to work. Certainly, we do not know today what the prices will be at U.S. markets. But I think from the history of the markets, and if you look at the prices they are charging at their other gas stations, we can be pretty sure that it's going to be competitive, and it's certainly not like what we experience at that end of town. So I would encourage you to please vote yes to support the plan for U.S. markets. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Next up is Marco Sanchez, and then...
He's not here.
He's not here?
He had to leave.
Okay. I have Amar Sidhu, Lancaster Drive, Salem. And then next up is Julian Coughlin.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, colleagues of the Mayor. Thank you guys for taking the time. This has been a long 2 years of going back and forth. You guys have all been very patient. I see a few new faces. And well, first of all, I work for U.S. Market, and I represent them on the marketing side of the business. I've been with them for the last about 4.5, 5 years, and seeing what the ownership structure and what they do into the sites they go in. For one, they're very, very friendly to the whole community that comes in. Whether you're a young kid, to a teenager, to an elderly, or however so it is, they support all, and they make sure every customer comes in and leaves with a great smile on their face. Not just saying it because I work for them, there's many people who could testify, and also you guys could see amongst their reviews on Gas Buddy and all of the platforms. With that being said, Don Sidhu, one of the owners, has done a phenomenal job in this city of putting on a golf tournament that could go to, say, up in Portland at the Reserve, because what he does is he has 72 teams that come and play. So when you're on a golf tournament, 72 teams can't play at one setting at a tee time. No, you have to break it up in a morning and an afternoon, or you break it up in 2 days. He said, hell with it. I'm not going to go to out of the city. I'm going to keep it in Woodburn. So he's done a great job, and I believe this year he raised over $100,000, and for a great cause, bringing everybody to Woodburn, Oregon. We live in Woodburn, and we support this town. We have so many people that come in day out to Woodburn that attend the Woodburn outlets. And we have a lot of outside people, community that comes from British Columbia, for example. Why do we let them, they all come in, and they all need gas to head back towards BC. When they come in, why are we putting a bad taste in their mouth for such high fuel prices? We would like them to come back. We'd like for them to spend more money in our city, right? And so we can progress more. US Market has done a phenomenal job with all the offerings they bring and how they take care of everything that they do. For example, Ms. Cornell, you had mentioned that what has US Market done in return for the community? Everything that has been said by the council or ODOT or whoever, they have gone and they've taken care of each one of those things line by line and backed by Ron Pett Architect, right? They've gone back and you guys said different times of fuel should be delivered. They're taking care of that. In your packets, supported by Mark Shipman, you'll be able to see by Pepsi, Coke, and also Core-Mark. These are the three main ones that will be doing deliveries. They will all be structuring them efficiently to when you guys need them to come in. So we will do whatever it takes to help coordinate it and make it as easiest for the elderly community, the youngs, the mid-age, whoever it may be, they will work with it.
Okay, thank you for sharing.
I didn't get his name and address.
Amar Sidhu, 1311 Lancaster Drive, Northeast Salem, Oregon. Yeah.
Mr. Coughlin. Next up, I have Fred Shaden.
Thank you, everybody. Julian Coughlin. I am an account executive with Core-Mark. We're one of the vendors. We currently supply several U.S. markets, and they're one of our good customers. And I wanted to add a little context to the delivery procedures. I know there were concerns raised about impacts to traffic, potentially with delivery trucks. So little background on Core-Mark. So we are specialized to deliver convenience stores. We do so to over 40,000 retail locations nationwide. Our trucks are 28-foot tri-temp trailers, so we do that because we're, again, specialized in just delivering convenience stores, so our drivers come down ramps. It takes us about 25 to 35 minutes to deliver a load. We deliver on a weekly basis, typically, for most stores. We can be flexible, as Amar previously said, so we try to make sure that we're in and out in a way that doesn't disrupt the flow of traffic, especially with the tight convenience store spaces that we deliver. So that's all I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Fred Chadron, 35913 Croft Road, Woodburn. One thing, Ms. Cornwell, you were saying, what does Don Sidhu bring to this community or the U.S. market potentially? One thing I do know, he's given great sums to Dornbeckers, for example. That's something that people can see towards, what can this community do and be happy about coming here. As far as the traffic flow, I think there's been quite a bit of engineering behind it to prove its point. I do believe it's going to work out. Driving up and down the corridor, I am an electrician. I do stop in at fuel stations, and I did see the one out in Brooks. Up to the point, there's one that was recently put up out in Division Street. Lighting should not be an issue, in my opinion. Coming there at night, all lighting is downward. Traffic flow comes in. That one's also on a corner. The one on Division Street in Portland, it doesn't delay any which way. And being Division Street, that one's a bigger street and harder to cut across two lanes both ways. So, and that one happened to work out. So this one, at a smaller scale, and I believe there was somebody else mentioned Chevron having to come back around on Evergreen. It's the same thing. You're pushing flow the other ways, you know. So I strongly suggest everybody vote yes on this.
Okay, thank you. So like I mentioned earlier, I have a number of cards of people that are here that chose not to speak at this moment. And I'll put their name in the record. I have a Todd Mitchell. I have a Doug Ayer. Juan Tippin. Sergey Chernoff. Chernoff. Patrick McDonough. Tiffany Baker. Lauren Silva. Harvey Sadam on Newburgh Highway. I'm sorry if I got that wrong. Barnes Sin. Daniel Shurkakoff. Sorry. Sonia Darling. Jay Bahia. Todd Garner. Ismail Suri. Michael Vasquez. Todd Nelson. Rob Stewart. Mark Shipman. Brian Gilbreth. Harry Bowler. Tony Sina. Bill Hammock. Emily Hammock. Kevin Kosh. Norman Maybe. Indrat Singh. David Arthur Malam. Sergeant Carr. In Nahama. Have I missed anyone? Oh, I did. Donna Spelva sent in a note saying she supports the project also. Have I missed anyone that would like to speak on behalf of it?
I didn't want to speak, but I filled out a blue card in support, and my name was not called. It was Mike and Debbie Holland.
And so what was your name?
Mike and, well, Debbie Holland, Holland.
Okay.
Well, as long as they come to the microphone, Mr. Mayor, and give their name and address, we'll make
please
sure
come
they
up
receive testimony.
Come up to the microphone.
I
and give me your name.
apologize for
I
that.
wanna
They're
make sure.
probably in the
It
other
might be in the other side.
And I'm sure it's my error.
Come on up.
Yeah, I still need your name.
Sorry. Debbie Holland.
Debbie Holland.
Holland, Holland.
Okay.
405 Troon Avenue in Woodburn, Oregon.
Okay.
And my husband and I support the project. We support Don Sidhu's application.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming up. Sir?
Good evening. Kevin Cash, 14900 Southwest 103rd, Tigard, Oregon.
Okay.
I work for Space Age Fuel, who is the fuel vendor that supplies fuel to the U.S. markets. Just wanted to answer any questions that you guys may have about deliveries, timing, and whatnot.
What are you delivering?
Gasoline and diesel to the locations.
Okay.
We deliver, 40 to 50,000 loads a month throughout the state at all times of the day. So I'm confident we can accommodate any time restrictions that the city has for delivery. We actually prefer to deliver in the evening or middle of the night as far as traffic wise and personnel on the property and whatnot. But after reviewing these plans, this is adequate and efficient for making safe deliveries to this location, whereas there's other locations throughout the state that aren't as adequate, and so we're confident that we can make safe deliveries.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir. You want to speak in favor of it?
I'm in favor. I wanted to
You need to come up to the microphone, sir.
My name's Todd Garner. I'm at 2782 Tukwila Drive in Woodburn, and I've been here about 8 years. First, I'd like to say the presentation from planning staff was superb. I thought they answered a lot of questions that I had in my mind. And I'm in favor of the project. And secondly, lastly, I would recommend that the in lieu fees maybe be paid for safety on the tracks after that heart-wrenching testimony at the beginning of the meeting. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else that's in favor of the project? Next up, then, I will have testimony by opponents, those that are against. And I have a number of cards here also, and also a equal number of cards that chose to have their name put in on the record. First up, I have Janie Tarabi, I'm sorry, on Oregon Way.
It's okay. Happens all the time.
Then I have Jill Morris next.
Can I speak from this one, or do I have to?
Either one.
Okay, doesn't matter.
Miss. Jill Morris is next, and then Jan Durkham on Oregon Way.
Everyone that's been here and spoke about the project, I understand. I mean, it's a beautiful project, it's nice, but it's not for us. I live on Oregon Way, 3 houses down from where this is going to be proposed. My husband and I bought this house so we could retire. We pay dues to live there. Every year, it's $1,800 that we have to pay to live there. Now, we have speeding cars coming down our street every day. It's hard to back out, and it's just going to get worse. And somebody's going to get killed. And it's just not fair. I mean, it's a quiet neighborhood now. You know, that building is going to be right in my backyard, 3 houses down. It just doesn't seem to be fair that we are doing all this to live in a quiet life, to have a gas station. I'm not against that gas station in our town. It's just not in the right spot. It just is not. And the noise, and they're going to be pumping gas at night. My husband still works. He has to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go to work. Do you think he's going to be able to sleep through that? It's not going to happen. Never. The disruption is just going to be ridiculous with the traffic and the safety issues for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yes.
Mr. Mayor and council members, thank you for letting us speak here tonight. Appreciate it. My name is Jill Morris, and I live at 952 Oregon Way. I will literally be kitty corner across the street from the gas station exit onto Oregon Way. Of course, the first thing to mention is always the increased traffic on Oregon Way. If they turn left onto Oregon Way and want to turn left at the signal onto the highway, that leaves very little room for very many cars to get out of the gas station to turn in either direction on the highway, because the left turn lane onto the highway will be blocking the exit. And I know they said that 6 cars could probably be in that left lane. That would probably be 6 little smart cars, because there's no way 6 cars could get there and not block that exit. Additionally, if they can't get going left, of course, they're going to go right down Oregon Way. And we already have enough traffic on Oregon Way as it is. And we don't want our street turning into another freeway or highway or thoroughfare or whatever. We walk our dogs on this road. We walk to our neighbors all the time. We don't have sidewalks already on this road. I think it would be terrible for us to add more traffic on our street. And that doesn't even mention like the headlights that are going to go directly into our homes. I mean, imagine trying to sit there, watch TV in the evening, have a quiet evening, and having headlights hitting your wall or your TV every, I don't know, minute or two. And they've mentioned that there's already 2 gas stations within 2 blocks of our homes. Why on earth do we need another gas station? And all of this doesn't even begin to touch the surface of the environmental considerations, having gas tanks in the ground next to our homes, and the vehicle pollution that'll be added to our neighborhood. Also, we're told that our homeowners insurance will go up due to the hazard of having a gas station so close to our homes. And also, we've been told that the values of our homes will decrease by 30%. I know someone mentioned that their home will increase, but they don't actually live across the street from the gas station. So I think that's different. And I would just strongly urge you to consider not approving the building of this gas station in our little neighborhood. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name's Jan Duncombe. I live at 980 Oregon Way. Actually, I am right across from that lot. You put 4 vehicles at the stoplight on 214. I can't even get out of my driveway. And something else to consider is that there's a bus stop that's right at the exit from that would be the service station. So people are going to be waiting on the bus. You're going to have cars backed up behind them, plus what's sitting there waiting for the light to change. It's going to be a mess. And not only do we have the bus coming down Oregon Way, we've got golfers from the golf course that drive their golf carts down Oregon Way also. And the maintenance, golf maintenance people bring their mowers, their tractors down Oregon Way. I mean, we're looking at a catastrophe here with all the traffic that is possible. And nobody's condemning U.S. Market having a service station, but they just need to build it somewhere else. It's just not the right location in a residential area. And speaking of cheaper gas, U.S. Market, you guys had approved for a service station down on Malala Road, down by Safeway. So it's not like there isn't one that will be in Woodburn. And I just want to thank you all for the service that you do for the city. Thank you.
Thank you for coming in, sharing your thoughts. Okay, next up I have Karen Halter and then Paula Kilgore, I'm sorry. And then Mickey Harrison.
Karen Halter, 938 Oregon Way. I agree with everything that's been said against this gas station. It is not the place. We have semis going down our street now, and the noise on that 214 is terrible for the trucks and all the speeding cars and loud mufflers, and it is just not the place to put that in a residential area. It's just too noisy. We'll never get any sleep. I have trouble now. And it's just not the right place. I'm sure he's a very good businessman and everything, but it's not the right place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm the reason you're here tonight, because I filed the appeal on this. I'm opposed to the building of the U.S. Markets Act.
Paula Kilgore.
Paula Kilgore. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm opposed to the building of the U.S. Markets application to build a gas station and convenience store at the location proposed for many reasons. The traffic hazards it will create on both Highway 214 and Oregon Way. The traffic light system at this intersection is dangerous, as in my travels across 214 off of Oregon Way, I've seen many non-stopping vehicles, including big rigs, who ignore the red light and continue without stopping. The congestion at Evergreen and 214, where access to Dutch Brother and Dairy Queen already create congestion, and now you're going to add an entry into a property for more congestion. Homeowners across the exit onto Oregon Way have difficulties getting out of their driveways safely. I moved into a 55 residential community that was established over 60 years ago. I feel that this land use in this area is detrimental to the neighborhood I live in. I'm concerned about the health of the residents of the immediate surrounding homes, the fire danger, especially now that we pump our own fuel. Fuel spills could contaminate not only this property, but the properties surrounding it. Homeowners insurance can be considered high risk because of the close proximity to the gas station and will be increased accordingly. Lastly, If the current trend into electric cars from diesel and gasoline by 2035, this gas station would be obsolete, so why waste the time? I also have 70 signatures opposing this on these papers.
Okay. Thank you. Give that to the city recorder, please. Thank you. I have Mickey Harrison. And then Susan Higgins and William Wright.
Mickey Harrison, 924 Oregon Way, Woodburn. Okay, I just want to, I'm not going to bother you because they've said everything. I don't have to say any more. And we're not knocking Don. He might be a great guy. I go to the Catholic Church too. That doesn't make me wonderful. But this is not, oh hi, this is not the place to put the gas station. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Susan Huggins, and I live at 910 Oregon Way, next to Mickey, really close to the exit onto Oregon Way.
Okay.
I agree with everybody, Paula especially. This isn't a popularity contest on this young man, Don Cito. It has nothing to do with how wonderful he is. It has to do with where I live, where I chose to live, the HOA fees that we have to pay, and I want to keep my livability. I figured I'd die here, but I don't want to die next year. With the traffic, with the houseless people, with the safety. I took pictures of the yard, and it's got, or the lot, and there were broken beer bottles, the big broken beer bottles, broken on the sidewalk, all over the field. And I don't want that. I don't want people coming into the convenience store and then coming onto my street and throwing their bottles, or drinking their beer there. The other thing is, agree with the lights and noise. What about the construction? How long is this going to go? And digging those holes for the big tanks. Please say no. This is where I live, and this is where all of us live, and we don't want it to change.
Thank you for coming to sharing. William Wright. William Wright here. Next up I have Becky, is it Becky Hayes? After that is Ed Ivy. Good evening.
Good evening. Becky Hayes at 950 Evergreen Road, Unit 205, Woodburn. And thank you, Mayor and councilmen and women for listening. I've been here and I've testified on each one of these every chance I get, on the planning committee, on the City Hall 2 years ago, and I'm totally against this. The gas station, not the person. I agree. I think he must be a wonderful man. I mean, he's donating to a good cause. He's giving Woodburn a lot, but he's not giving us in our area right here, right where the gas station's going to go. Nothing. They've vetoed a abatement wall and went with a 8 or 9 foot architectural wall, which does not give sound barrier buffing. The lighting is 6 foot. The wall is less than 6 foot, or I'm sorry, 16 feet for the lighting. Yes, it points down, but we are 3 stories, and it will affect us. The cars at night will affect us. We are a 55 plus community. Average age is probably in the late 70s. We haven't done that. We go to bed early, and you know, scheduling the gas delivery time, my grandfather, my dad, owned gas stations. There's a proper place for a gas station. I have nothing against the store or the office buildings, but the gas station, they have, it affects the ozone layer, it affects the leakage in the grounds, and I'm not going to mention, I agree with everybody else, the insurance and all of that. There's also a Shell gas station across just on the other side of the freeway that everybody's ignoring, and that's available. There's the Safeway on 99. Why can't it be another place for the gas station? As far as derelict, the property, he owns the property. If he cares about us around here, Woodburn, why isn't he upkeeping it now? Why is he letting weeds grow and look like a derelict place? The last thing I'm going to say, the tanks are going in the northwest corner, propane tanks and the gas tanks, and that is, the northwest corner is Panor. You know, if they hold off building those office buildings years and years, we don't have any say when they do that. That's in a phase, way future. Anyway, thank you for listening.
Thank you. Ed Ivy? Okay, we'll put him as those that are against it but did not want to speak. I do not have anyone else that I know of that signed that they will speak. I have quite a few names I'll read off. Yes, Miss?
They signed up to speak.
Please, come on up.
Good evening, Mayor Lonergan and City Council members. My name is Annika Figueroa. I live on 791 South Settlemyre Avenue here in town. I am here to represent my parents, Don and Minette Zerung, who reside at 966 Oregon Way, directly across. Unfortunately, they are currently caring for my grandmother in California. I'd like to begin by stating that 966 Oregon Way is at the epicenter of what is wrong with this type of enterprise on this particular property. The conditional use provisions in the Planning Commissioner's own document states under Criteria B, the impact on the proposed use on the quality of living environment includes noise, illumination, hours of operation, air quality, aesthetics, and vehicular traffic. With the approval of this project, most of the Oregon Way residents could check many of these as significantly eroding their living environment. My parents can check every single one. There could be 1,000 vehicles a day accelerating from the only exit out onto Oregon Way, 60 feet from their front door. The applicant's traffic engineer's report attempted to compare the traffic to be expected from U.S. Market to the traffic of two small banks 15 years ago, of which only one exited onto Oregon Way. I think we can agree this is not an accurate representation of what Oregon Way residents will deal with. Banks operate from 9 to 5, and they are closed on weekends. This business will be open from 6 a.m. until 12 a.m. every day. That means for up to 7 hours a night, halogen lights from 400 cars will be aimed directly into their living, dining, and bedroom every single evening. The Planning Commission's own report points out that the hours of operation raise concern about increased crime and, I quote, bad actors that this type of business model tends to attract. Idling vehicles, waiting for an opening, will produce copious amounts of exhaust. If this city council supports this project, we would expect either from the applicant or the city subsidies for any residents on the east side of Oregon Way within the line of sight of the project. Subsidies would include privacy hedges, metal protective devices, which would give some means of security to prevent collisions ending up in their front yards or even worse, into their homes. Vehicular traffic. Highway 214 already resembles a drag strip from Evergreen to the firehouse. Speeding cars with tuned exhausts all day long, Dutch Brothers traffic holding up the entire right-hand lane, and now we are considering adding another 1,000 vehicles exiting a 12-foot driveway with insufficient right-of-way and a bus stop 60 feet away, and that is straight from the Planning Commission's report. My parents have personally witnessed 15 of the 43 accidents that have already occurred at this intersection. This project is not safe. It will degrade the quality and integrity of the neighborhood, and it will negatively impact the residents on Oregon Way. This project deserves the City Council's denial. Donna Manette Zerung. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Pardon?
We have one more.
And that is?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, fellow council members, and those who live on Oregon Way in Evergreen. Jaime Rodriguez, 1639 Newport Way, Woodburn, Oregon. Hearing the testimony here, hearing both the proponents and the opponents, it's just a bad deal. Traffic along that Newburgh Freeway is already bad enough. We thank all those who come in out of town to use the Woodburn outlet stores for their building the economy of Woodburn. The gas stations traditionally along I-5 exits are always going to be higher than most people here in Woodburn don't use those stations to fill up. We know better. We go to Safeway, we go to the truck stops where I usually go to, Aurora or Brooks, very easy to get to. Today I filled up in Hubbard, the Space Age station, $2.99 a gallon. I guarantee you that Space Age will never be that low. You cannot even throw in the Arco station, which they try to throw in there. That is just thrown out of the window because they constantly just trying to get gas from tourists who come through off the highway who have nowhere else to go because they're on empty. If I'm around them, I tell them, hey man, get your $5 and go down the freeway to a truck stop. Always cheaper. I do want to say that the traffic there along the freeway, along the Oregon Way and Newburgh Freeway is terrible already. Try to get to anywhere, Walmart. It's going to take you 10 minutes out of the Country Club Estates central area to Newburgh, to Walmart. 10 minutes. On a afternoon when school comes out, you've got major more traffic, increasing up to 20-25%. Again, we don't need that type of traffic, especially for those in Oregon Way who made life decisions on a property value that was not going to go down. Because I can guarantee you, if that was the case, Oregon Way residents would be empty and nobody would be buying property there. My value of my property is safe because I am on Newport Way, about a mile away from Newburgh. I'm not here to speak for myself. I'm here to speak for my neighbors who made decisions on the increase of their value. Let's not forget that we do not need any more traffic. We do not need any more gas emissions in this city that has a 55-plus residential community who we already, at our age, are worried about the air and the pollutants in the air. We have a moment here where we can say no to increased traffic. We can say no to, hey, there are plenty of other places in Woodburn if you really want to make an improvement in our community and have our choices for gas prices. And final thing is that make a good decision, not for profits, not for the owner, but for the community as a whole here in Woodburn. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you for your concerns.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else that wants to speak against the project? I will then read off these names of people that are here and filled out a card. Janie Dirk, Vicky Hibbert, Largo Aspear, Lori Klamer, Jennifer Lipinski, Janice Arkin, Betty Yaz, Ed and Sheila Hahn, Wanda Stevens, Loretta Vittoria, James Burns, Debbie Gaith, Rosemary Hinkle, Julie Hardley, Melina Turner, Diana Maitoff, Nancy Landers, Ed Hahn, Dorothy Manair, Pam Garrett, Carol Bettendorf, Tom Barrow, Susan Nichols, Mike and Debbie Holland, Carol Paradis, Sandy Stephan, Stormy Strand, Carolyn Forrest, Larry Derrick, I believe, Alice Green, I think it's Diane Hilton, Anna and Henry Phillips, Doris Ebanks, Norman Ebanks, Sergi Figueroa, Gordon Hall, Deborah LeBold, Gloria Bonney, Donna Riker, Nancy Bellinger, Mara Froshen, Mary McGrath, Robert Boyle, Marilyn Chartoloffi, Lina Hines, Julie Provost, Donna Owen. Thank you, Donna, for having a name I can read easy. Carol Sullivan. So all those people are now in the record for being against the project.
Frank?
Yes. Did I read your name off?
Yeah, but it was in the wrong pile.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it. We will get that for, I figured that was going to happen. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have rebuttal. Rebuttal by the applicant. Welcome back.
Thank you. My name is Don Sidhu. I live in 692 Troon Avenue, Woodburn, Oregon 97071. And I live here since 2003. And I love the community, a small community, and it's good, but it's growing just like anything else. Just answering a few questions, when was a bank there, and I heard it just not too long ago, it was 9 to 6 business hours, but those both bank has ATM machines, 24/7s, no matter what. And they were 24/7. I used it many times. I have a Wells Fargo bank. I use that bank at nighttime. And I had a Columbia bank. I use the Columbia Bank ATM machine at nighttime. And the secondary and the bank also have a light. I still have a pole sitting there, those nighttime parking lot poles. It's still in the property. We dig them out, but they're still laying in the parking lot. So they're about probably like 22 to 25 feet high. And they're also pointing down, not pointing at the residential or not pointing anybody else. And we're gonna have a lighting and work with the city staff, and whatever the requirement, we go along with it. And even the canopy, awning, storefront light, all gonna be just pointing down, not pointing anybody. And the second thing is talking about the fuel tanks, underground leakage and fumes and all of that. The technology nowadays, DEQ, EPA, all those require so much, they're so good nowadays is you cannot even smell pumping right next to it when you have a new system. And the tank going underground, they're double wall, basically tank within the tank. If the fuel holding tank leaks, and it gives us alarm right away, it shuts off the whole system. It would not leak outside into the ground whatsoever, not even a drop. Unless somebody spilled it fueling, that's their mistake, right? But the same thing with the piping coming out of the tanks to the pump, they're also double pipes. If the inside leaks, outside will tell right away. They're all sensor, and they shut off everything, basically, automatically. And even some people, pumping and they break the nozzles, they forgot to take out of the tank, and it breaks away, it shuts off automatically. It have such a unique system nowadays. It's not like the old days. And those are the answers I want to answer to you guys. That's it. Go ahead, Mark. There's any?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, there's a lot of information that was covered. I guess one of the first things I want to talk about was the procedural error that may have been alleged by Mr. Harrison. We don't believe there's procedural error. It's customary that as an applicant, we bear the burden of proof for the application, and we're going to be defending it. And so we typically work with counsel with respect to creating the final written findings in support of the application. So that shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. A lot of the testimony that you heard tonight was the same testimony the Planning Commission heard. Same topics, same issues, same passion, maybe even more passion tonight. And the reality is that the Planning Commission heard all that information. And they made a decision based on substantial evidence that we've provided into the record that we satisfy not just the approval criteria, but also the conditions of approval that staff initially proposed, the Planning Commission approved and blessed, will provide that reasonable certainty with respect to that balancing that I talked about earlier with respect to the compatibility. Your code doesn't require 100% compatibility. What it requires is that you make it as practicably reasonable as possible with respect to ensuring that those items that were identified in the conditional use permit criteria are satisfied. Staff identified that we did. Planning Commission identified that we did, and that's how they approved it. I understand that there's a lot of traffic on Oregon Way, and there's a lot of traffic on 214. The zoning's commercial general here. That's not going to change. It's been zoned commercial general for decades. And so whether a gas station and a convenience store goes in, or a restaurant, as others have testified that they wanted to see, there are a lot of uses that could go in there that would be more intense from a traffic standpoint than this use. I think that Mr. Bessman described it well. The system can support and will support this use without the system failing and without it being compromised. And I think that based on that information and based on the evidence that you have in the record, I think that's why the Planning Commission approved this. It wasn't unanimous, but I think they took a long, hard look at it and they realized this is a good application, and it really is. So with that note, I would urge that you move to approve staff recommendation that's before you with respect to approving the decision, with respect to adopting the conditions of approval as outlined in the Planning Commission's decision, and happy to address any questions that you have at this time. Thank you.
Does the council have any questions for Mr. Shipman?
There's just one question regarding, if approved, the timeline for construction. I thought that was a valid question. How long they anticipate that would be in actual construction?
When you finish, start to finish?
Are you asking start to finish?
Start to finish, just, when do you start digging up the...
Please come back to the microphone.
As soon as the permit's in my hand, it might be about anywhere from 160 days, maybe most, or 180 days maximum.
From
6 months basically start, as soon as we start digging and finish is 6 months.
6 months, and you'll start serving customers.
That's right.
That's what I wanted to know about, 6 months of construction. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant?
So I have a comment that I'll...
We're going to have a discussion here in a minute.
Yeah, in the form of a question, but I don't really want to put the applicant on the spot. But But one of the suggestions made by one of the opponents who lives directly across the street was that if the council were to approve this application, that they would urge that either the applicant or the city put in some barrier, some arborvitae to block the light from the headlights of the cars, exiting the premises back onto Oregon. And so I just want the applicant to consider whether that might be a viable possibility as an amelioration of that kind of direct impact. And again, I don't want to open a negotiation
No, we're
or
not.
anything of that nature.
I understand your comment, and the applicant would support a condition of approval along those lines.
Okay. Thank you. Last chance. Any other questions for?
I wonder if my question is more for the staff regarding, there are no sidewalks on Oregon Way?
No. From my house down. I'm on number 6.
Please, ma'am.
So along the property in question, there is an existing sidewalk that's right along the curb, yes.
Along the property, but across the street, the
Yeah.
residents don't have sidewalks.
Like most of the estates, the houses don't have sidewalks.
And I don't know if it's an appropriate question, just, but fees in lieu of can't help put some things there that'll make it more safe for these families now that there will be some more, in front of their house. I'm not sure if it's even a solution, but just.
I might take a shot
Yeah,
at
because
that.
the sidewalks is a huge issue for me anyway in our city.
Yeah, well, most of the estates do not have sidewalks, and that was quite an intentional decision that was made back when the estates was approved. So,
Okay.
I wasn't here. I understand from the history that was requested by the developer at the time. So, the way that it works is that the city prioritizes based on information and data, the highest and best use of those dollars to mitigate impacts of projects across the city, either on-site or off-site. So those fees would go to address the high priority concerns. And we've heard several tonight that aren't directly adjacent to the project. We've talked about mitigating hazards elsewhere in the city, and certainly we work to do that. So I hope that answers your questions. I mean, typically it's not a pay a fee to directly benefit your own project. It's a pay a fee to benefit the system and the capacity of the system within the city based on our existing plans and our priorities.
Thank you.
Okay. I announce the public hearing is now closed. We will not take any more testimony from either the applicant or the appellant. And it is open for discussion by the council. So what is council?
Hi.
Well, let me start by saying that, we do have comprehensive land use planning here in Oregon, and by and large, despite all the criticisms, that's probably a good thing, that we try to plan our future. And so I kind of start from the place that where you have a commercial zone, then an owner of land is allowed to develop that as fits within the commercial zone. In some cases, such as this, there's a process for getting a conditional use. And in this case, as my understanding, it's because the conditional use is for a gas station that's 160 feet away, pumps 160 feet away from the nearest residences. I do appreciate the concerns raised on both sides, but in particular by those that are nearest to this location that would be most directly impacted. But I also feel that we do have an appropriate use for this facility, and I think the conditions that staff and have been approved by the Planning Commission go a long way towards trying to make this as unintrusive a use as would be possible for this gas station. So I guess I'd just start the discussion on that note.
So I'll jump on that and say, yeah, the city, being either the planning department or the council, cannot dictate what goes on somebody's property. The owner has a right to do as long as they follow the conditions of the city and the property zoning. But I cannot say that we want a restaurant there. I cannot say that we want something else there. So it's up to the landowner to come to us, which is why we're having this discussion tonight on proper conditional use.
Well, I've kind of watched the property. I don't even know if I want to use the word develop, but following the banks being torn down and the property being vacant, there were 2 trees on the property, and those 2 trees were just cut down. And of course, I immediately called the city to say, what's going on? Somebody cut these trees down, knowing that, you know, you needed to get permission. And, you know, again, fees in lieu of. And I know that I heard $96,000 in fees in lieu of no underground utilities and other things. I just thought that the developer kind of acted improperly by starting off with, you know, just doing what he wanted to do with the property. I'm very concerned with the traffic, the noise that the residents of senior estates are going to have to endure with a development of this type. I think that the developer has done an excellent job by, let's say, checking all the boxes when you went to the Planning Commission and our planning department that said, you know, these are the conditions we'd like you to meet. You've met them all. So I'm feeling conflicted when you know that somebody did everything correctly, but then you also know that this is not compatible with the neighborhood that I have been associated with for the last 18 years. So that's kind of a conflict for me. Sure. And I've been thinking about this for weeks. And anyway, just kind of wanted you to know where I'm coming from.
I don't think this was an easy decision for even the Planning Commission to make, and I think it affects all of us have many years here in Woodburn, and realize that we certainly appreciate people coming to meetings, sharing your thoughts on both sides. We see that. So, yeah, not if Councilor Schaub says she's conflicted, I think we all certainly could be that. Councilor Cornwell, do you have anything to say?
And nobody wants a gas station by their house. I live right downtown. I've got a lot of noisy activity that you just kind of get used to. But the aromas that come to me are very pleasant, so I kind of deal with it. But I think this would be a totally different fight if there was property over by Tukwila that they wanted to put a gas station in. I'm just saying, I have to, you guys live in my ward, I have to represent you, okay? And I'm sure that Don is a very impressive, I appreciate what you've done for the community. I was not aware of any of the Dornbecker. That's just wonderful that you did that. And I enjoy your U.S. markets. I go to the one in Mount Angel. as frequently as I can because of the best deli food. Me and my son we really enjoy that. And I don't know, I'm really torn because I do have to represent the ward I'm in. So there you are.
Thank you.
I will start by saying I am one of the newer members of council. I haven't quite been here a year, so I didn't participate in the earlier sessions. So I've taken a lot of time to review things. I went back and watched those council meetings so that I can, make a decision based on hearing both sides. I totally get it. Like, she's right. Nobody really wants a gas station right across the street from them. I live across the street from a commercial property. I live in Tequila, so I live directly across the street from the exit of OGA. So there's a lot of activity that happens there, in and out. Lights in my neighbor's window that she's not happy about. So I totally understand that side. I'm coming at it just as a resident here of town, and I think that property needs to be developed. It's been sitting vacant for way too long. Somebody talked about beer bottles. My best guess would be there's not going to be broken beer bottles in that parking lot. They're going to have people there working and cleaning that up. The lighting that's going to be happening, that's facing down, to me that's going to make a lot safer environment than what is there now. Dark, dreary. I've seen homeless campers in that lot. It didn't last very long because I'm sure the owner was like, private property, you got to get off here. That probably won't happen if the property gets developed. So that's my stance.
Thank you.
Well, yes, I am new to the council, but I did take the time to go through all of the materials from the original application, the second application, and got the education to make the decision, and I struggled and kept going back with a couple more questions. It is a very challenging thing to see, but as our counselors have mentioned, that lot needs development. That area needs some attention. And I appreciate having someone that is in our community, because when I try to purchase services, I always want someone that if something didn't go right, I can go knocking on his front door and say, hey, you didn't fix this. And if he's in our community and he's a part of who we are, and if something comes up, I hope that we would be able to go to him and say, you know what, whatever. But I know that we're not going to be able to monitor everything, but because he is in Woodburn, now he knows and has heard our concerns, and I cannot, and I respect him for taking the time to addressing all of the details and questions and issues and being here, and that's hard for me to not respect to that. So if that property is going to be developed, having a neighbor do it in Woodburn and work with us is what we want. We want partners in our community for Woodburn.
Thank you, councilors. Before we go on, I would like the council to tell me if they feel they can make a decision tonight without looking at the additional material that was passed out by the applicant. Yes, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Then, with that, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion to approve the application with one additional condition, that the property owners across the street from the exit to Oregon Way have arborvitae, a barrier planted. I know there was at least one affected property. There may be two affected properties, and I understand the applicant to have conceded to that request.
Are you suggesting arborvitae on their property?
Yeah, I think
they suggested
the property owner
Owners asked
suggested
for that.
That's what they were asking for.
Yeah, with some, I
Something
think,
they agree with.
railing to prevent cars from zooming into the house if there's an accident.
So, motion's been made to approve the planning commission's approval with the conditions they had and the one additional condition. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Been moved and seconded. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Counselor Wilk?
Yes.
Counselor Cantu?
Yes.
Counselor Cornwell?
No.
Counselor Grijalva?
Yes.
Counselor Schaub?
No.
Motion is passed 3-2 in favor of the planning commission's approval. So I'm going to, I again would like to thank everybody for coming tonight. It is a true sign of democracy that people have a right to say what they feel. And I'm going to have a 5-minute recess before we go on to additional business. That is very
But you know, the one, this is signature. The day of the year, Thank you. We did not hear this.
Well, I wish you all the best. Tell Rosa. I have to listen to what my award says. You know what those people say. I look forward to the deli.
I was in exercise today, so. But, yeah, so, all the awards out
Y'all have no place to go to lunch.
Yeah, sounds good. No, that's fine, I agree.
So that's 4 minutes.
Beautiful scarf. Yeah, I love that color. And my only thing was like, everybody can jump on that. Oh yeah, that's really good. Well, I keep saying 3 properties. Otherwise, maybe on the 4th property, I'd be like, I want that. Great question. Oh, I know. Don't tell me about it. I know.
Really? Do you have your address?
I'm thinking like those things that go along the freeway with the cable wire.
That's what we did. It's something you guys written on your
I never want to do that again.
Got 1 minute. Let's start the meeting, please. Reconvene.
We're going to discuss it. We're going to make a motion.
Good job.
Oh, I just feel terrible. Well, because are we... Okay. Thanks.
I agree. You did a very good job. The way you covered it and said, totally agree with you.
Sidewalks everywhere.
I knew that.
This is the meeting you'll remember.
Yes, that's true.
It will. It will be.
Thank you.
Heather, are you ready?
I'm ready, thank you.
Call the meeting back to order at 10:13. We will move on. Before we move on to general business, the question has been at the last motion that we had concerning the motion on the U.S. gas station. Clarification on the...
Yeah, on advice of counsel, I've been asked to rephrase the motion so that planning department will come back with final
a final written decision.
Final written decision, thank you.
At your next meeting.
For our next meeting, based on what we agreed to.
Yes.
Tonight.
Thank you.
Okay. Then moving on to general business, we have one item, which is award personal service agreement to Opus Architects. And we have a staff report.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I know you've had a really long night, and so I'll keep this brief, but I think that you'll find this to be hopefully a pretty exciting item before you tonight. you'll remember that back in, I mean, this community center project goes way, way back, but the current iteration really kicked off in 2019 when we secured a $1 million design grant from the Oregon State Legislature, convened a 22-person advisory committee to come up with concepts for a community center project that would be beneficial and supported by the community. Did a lot of work over the next 4 or 5 years, and as you're aware, that the final funding package was put on the ballot for a bond measure in November of 2024, and as you all well know, that bond measure was defeated, and we were, of course, disappointed by that result. But then immediately kind of regrouped and started discussing ways to take advantage of the very unique funding opportunity that was handed to the city by the Oregon Legislature, which followed the initial award. So in the 2021 session, the Oregon State Legislature awarded a $15 million lottery bond grant to the city for the development and construction of a community center. And through work internally, we identified additional sources of local funds, which we are targeting park system development charges, which are fees paid by developers to the city that can only be used for projects that expand the capacity of parks and recreation facilities. And so we're looking, following the election, at this $20 million funding opportunity that doesn't last forever. The state grant has a timeline on it, and it would be set to expire. And so we were envisioning ways that we could salvage that and re-envision the original concept, which was coming with a price tag of about $60 million, and try to fit it into the resources that we had available to us, the $20 million. So we had conversations with our architectural firm that led to conversations with the state of Oregon and some pretty vigorous negotiations, and we ultimately have received tentative approval to move forward with a revised community center project that fits within the $20 million price tag that we have the resources to be able to fund. And so this would be a project that we would take on that would not have the additional cost to the taxpayer that the bond measure would have had it passed. So clearly, if we're going to be reducing the project by $40 million, a lot of things end up having to go away. And so we had to, it became clear that the aquatics expansion, the new warm water recreation therapy pool, was one that's a very expensive amenity, and that was one that quickly had to go away. The 2-court gymnasium with the upstairs walk jog track would have to go away under this concept, but we would be able to retain a lot of pretty significant amenities. We went back to the work of the advisory committee and the surveying that we did of the community and the polling that we did as well to identify the amenities, one, that we could afford, and then two, that were the most desired by the community. And so what we've come up with is a rough concept that would essentially double the size of the current facility, and it would reconstruct the locker rooms and the lobby area. It would add a large dividable event space of approximately 3,400 square feet that would be equipped with a commercial kitchen that would serve a wide variety of events, large events, public events, community events, could support senior meal programs, especially with the commercial kitchen. It would be dividable probably into 3 separate rooms that could be used for, youth, teen, and adult programming all simultaneously, or opened up for really large events as well. We're also planning on fitness facilities, so both cardio and weights facilities, and then even separate spaces for group fitness activities. We're looking at a new and expanded parking lot. The current parking lot really is inadequate, actually, to support the demand that we see, especially during large events. Pretty much every morning during the week when we have our water fitness classes going on, that parking lot's full and overflowing. So parking lot would be reconstructed and expanded. and maybe even most importantly, the existing aquatic center is actually going to be coming up on its 30-year anniversary this fall. Opened in October of 1995. It's hard to believe. I was actually there. My first stint with the city was working at the aquatic center, and starting in October of 1995, and so it's been...
Were you a lifeguard?
I was the assistant manager at the time. Yeah, and enjoyed my time there for sure. And then, came back to the city in 2007, and it's been enjoyable to kind of see the success of that facility. But I've also seen it age, and it's there's a lot of deferred maintenance that needs to be addressed there, and so a significant amount of the project funding would go into renovating and upgrading the existing aquatics natatorium, new roof, starting blocks, work with a slide, mechanical equipment, just a lot of upgrades and touch-ups that are very much necessary. And we're also looking to make sure that the facility is designed to accommodate future expansion. So we've been working on some layouts that we feel really pretty good about, and would also allow us, if funding in the future permitted, to add a gymnasium, because we do know that it's a very expensive amenity, and it's just not one that we can afford with the resources that we have now. But we're hopeful that at some point down the road those resources will become available, and so the facility will be designed to add a gymnasium onto it. So what we're asking you for tonight is to approve a contract award for our existing architectural firm that's done all the work to date. They've done a tremendous amount of baseline design work that's going to be reused, but there's a lot of reworking that they need to do. And so we need to really refine the concept, come up with a good layout, floor plan, make sure that we can afford all of these amenities that we've been looking at and kind of tentatively pricing out, and come up with some good cost estimates. And then we'll go deeper into the design process. We'll be coming back multiple times because there are going to be a lot of phases to this project. So tonight you're going to authorize kind of the program and redesign concept work that'll take about a month. So that'll take us pretty much through the month of February. You'll probably be seeing us at the next few council meetings, because we're going to be doing some work to pave the way for the selection of a contracting approach that's a little bit unique for the city, and so you'll be learning more about that. It's what's called the Construction Manager General Contractor approach, the CMGC approach, and it's kind of a way of bidding out and bringing on a contractor early in the process to work hand in hand with the design team to make sure that the project can be designed effectively and within the resources that we have available. It's the same approach that the food bank used, and you can see that was a very successful approach, where you've got a different kind of a partnership between the owner, the design team, and the contractor, and it really has been shown to lead to beneficial results. So you'll see that coming soon. There will be another phase of architectural and engineering design work that will come back to the council for approval as well. So there's going to be a number of things that are happening here over the next couple of months. We expect the design process to complete in the fall, with construction starting right around that time. So possibly October, if all goes well. And then we're looking at maybe about a 16-month construction process. So by the end of 2026, early 2027, the project should be completed and ready to reopen to the public. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. We've been working hard on this, as you probably can figure out, for the last couple of months. We're excited that we've come to a resolution, and it's one that we feel really good about, one that the state is on board with, and one that we think is going to add a lot of value to the community for decades to come. So happy to take any questions you might have.
How tentative do you feel that pricing is of what we are going to get, what you described, to the 20 million? We
feel pretty good about it. We kind of, the cost analysis that we've done so far is really kind of on a rough scale, and it's based off of the cost per square foot, and so of the type of construction that we're looking at. So it's pretty rough numbers, but then once we really refine what the project amenities are going to be, then a much more detailed cost estimate will be done, similar to the ones that we did before, where they're actually looking at very specific costs for all of the materials that are going to go into the project.
So once we get to that point, then it'll come back in front of council to approve the package deal.
Correct.
For financing.
That's right.
Are any citizens on the board of what you're working through right now?
You know, there aren't right now, and the reason for that is because we are on an extremely tight timeline, and we are now at the end of January. So it's been almost 3 months since the bond measure election failed, and we've been working through the process of gaining approval from the state. The $15 million grant has to be expended by May of 2026. And that timeline is so coming upon us so quickly that we're going to have to be very aggressive in completing the design, getting the project under construction, and spending those dollars down so that we don't lose them. So we're having to rely on the work that the Citizen Advisory Committee has already performed and the feedback that we received from the publics through the numerous outreach methods that we used previously.
I will take part of the blame if that's a problem. I'm the one that kind of disbanded the committees after the vote failed, and knowing how busy, how important it was for the staff to go ahead and continue on to this effort.
These are just questions I've gotten from just recently.
And it's a great question. It really is. And it was even one where, like even tonight, I'm wondering how long this meeting is going to go, and is there the possibility that the council is going to want to push this item to the next agenda? And that actually would be very costly to us, just 2 weeks. So we're on a really rapid very aggressive time frame here.
I just wanted you to reassure the public that this will not increase taxes for them.
It will not. Yeah, we are. This is that bond measure election failed. We are not going back out. We briefly considered it and decided that, the community spoke. We really feel like it was a matter of economics. They just didn't feel like it was affordable at this point in time. We just came through a couple years of really high rates of inflation, and people are still feeling it. And they let us know that they just didn't have the ability to pay more for this project, and so
it's a really good question. I just want to just emphasize that the money that the city is utilizing is the money that we've had designated for this project that was outside the bond. Mm-hmm. That the bond was to add additional resources to help fund the community center as envisioned by the citizen committee work and the polling, and that this will not increase taxes. We're not asking the community for additional money. We're just using the money that we had set aside to contribute towards it had it passed.
I think it's important we do public messaging at that on every opportunity.
And I think it's also important to note that the park system development charges, again, are fees paid by developers to the city. So it's paid on residential development that can only be used to add and expand parks and recreation facilities within the community. And so we've been undergoing a rapid amount of development, as you're well aware, over the last few years. And you're starting to see some of the widespread community benefit, in particular to the park system from that. So if you look at all of the parks that are in the Smith Creek development, and we're working on design for a park in the Boone's Crossing development that's going to be coming up soon, and even we've got this 8-acre park up in the new Dove Landing development that's under construction now. And so with development comes a lot of challenges, but this is one of many instances where it really can add a lot of value to the community. And so it's contributing a significant amount of the funding that we're able to put into this community center project.
And I want to say I realize the amount of work that's gone into this since the vote in November, and I strongly appreciate Jim's work and Scott's, being able to put a plan together that still, like Jim said, it will help improve the standard of living here in Woodburn and take care of a problem that's 30 years old that definitely needs help with that pool. So. No.
And it's going to be closed for 16 months, perhaps?
Unfortunately, it will be. It's not the sort of project that you can conduct while it's open because there's so much work being done. In fact, the locker rooms and the lobby are being completely demoed and reconstructed, and there's so much work going on to the existing pool itself that it just we won't be able to keep it open.
And one more clarification that I'll get from Frank or Scott. The money to improve Settlemyre Park is not part of this.
There's two different projects going on. One is to improve Settlemyre Park, looking at trails and playground equipment is something that is separate from what we're doing here.
And we're working on that
We are working
financially.
on that, we're looking on funding of that. Yeah, so there's different
And we are
avenues for that.
actually hoping to be able to, not making any promises here, but we're going to try to actually track those two projects at the same
together.
time.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, they're so integrated that it makes sense to do them both at the same time, so we're going to try to do that to the extent possible.
Any other questions of?
Oh, sorry, I've had a coughing attack, so now I can't talk. The funds to get into this architectural agreement, will those come out of the $15 million grant, $5 million from the city that's already budgeted?
Yes, they will.
Thank you.
And I was just going to remind us that we had also, as part of the original plan, we had a firm look at philanthropic contributions from community members, and I don't recall what the final analysis was there, but there may be some additional monies that could come our way.
That is very true. They have identified a number of potential funding sources. We've made applications to some already, and we're really focusing those efforts on the park project itself, specifically the universally inclusive playground that kind of is really pretty elaborate feature that's accessible to the extent that goes way beyond the ADA, and so that's a project that we think is really suitable for private and foundation funding.
Great.
And this is way looking far ahead. Will this greatly increase prices for citizens that want to use the facility after
Well,
it's
we haven't gone through, actually, the kind of the recreation analysis, the market analysis, and even pricing recommendations is a part of this design project. So we haven't settled on a level of fees yet. But you can imagine that if we're setting a daily use fee for a facility that we originally envisioned that included all the gymnasiums and the walk-jog tracks and the expanded aquatics features, that it was going to take a user fee that was higher than we're charging now. This is a facility that's not going to have the same level of amenities and staffing costs, so the fees won't be at the level that they would have had to be in that particular instance. But
And because there's no bond levy to pay off,
right,
that there's no that reduces the cost to the public dramatically because there's no capital cost recovered in the fees.
The 3,400 square feet, can that be rented out?
Yeah, it'll be available
so
for
that would be
private.
money back to the city.
Correct.
So the chamber doesn't have to go to
Yeah, we don't have to go to Mount Angel. the
There you go.
chamber.
There you go.
We can do it right here in Woodburn.
And we're looking for the kind of facility that we used to have at the Well Springs Center.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So I have a community citizen that would like to speak about the pool. Jim, you might stay there.
Sure.
You might be able to ask some questions. Dagmar? Okay.
Hello, my name is Dagmar Kidne, 586 Grant Street in lovely Woodburn. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. And I wanted to compliment you guys that you got the $15 million retained, so I think that is awesome. And I just want to say I was very outspoken against the $60 million project, as you know. So I am all for doing something with the $20 million, because my vision is that that is possible. And it would only help us all not to go super big, but just realistic. And if at all, I would like to help. So whatever I can do, I'm a swimmer, and we have a group of swimmers together that we all have ideas, of course. So the point is to basically get the community together with the activities that we can offer.
Mm-hmm.
And that is for what my little world in swimming and in yoga, Pilates, and what the place has to offer, that we're all a community and a family, and that's what we need to foster.
Yeah.
So if I can get somehow involved, I would really, really appreciate that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions discussions, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move to authorize the city administrator to enter into a personal services agreement with OPSIS Architecture LLP in the amount of $29,600 plus reimbursable expenses estimated to be $500 to provide architectural programming and concept design services for the community center project.
Second.
Thank you. Been moved and seconded. All in favor, signify with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on, we do not have anything from the Planning Commission, so we'll move on to the City Administrator's report.
Yeah, just briefly, Mr. Mayor. This evening we had a group of students and adults come wanting to address the City Council on the recent fatality with a train collision with a student. And I talked to them prior to the start of the council meeting in my office and invited them back to the next City Council meeting where we'll talk a little bit. I think it's important that the community and the City Council visit this topic and take a look at some of the history. We have a long history with UP here at the city and trying to engage on improving the conditions along the tracks and access to the high school. The council knows we've got a safe school trails project currently underway, and I think it'd be good just to revisit all that. But the other thing that I've talked with staff about is as we go down the road of trying to address community safety, particularly with students and the railroad track, I think the one thing that we really want to start encouraging are conversations with young people about the dangers of the track. That's something we don't have to wait for. That can happen tomorrow. I know the school district cares about this. We care about this. It's been a topic of conversation for a while. We really want adults, teachers, parents, neighbors talking with young people about the dangers that the track poses. And it's not a joke. It has taken the lives of many young people over the years. So that's something that could happen. That could start happening tonight. It could happen tomorrow as we work through these longer term types of structural issues around access and rights of way and load bearing overpasses and things that we can and can't do. That will take some time, but those conversations can happen today. And that's where I think we would like to encourage people to start.
Thank you, Scott. I think that is an important conversation. So, yeah. Anything else?
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. We invited them back to the next council meeting.
Okay. Mayors and council reports, start down at the end, or one of our newer members?
No, I appreciate all of the training and information I'm getting and that wonderful organizational chart. Thank you.
Good. Councilor Cantu?
I got nothing.
Yeah. Soon to be off chamber president?
Yes, Friday is the Chamber's annual meeting, and I will be virtually passing the gavel as our next president will not be present. I don't know how that's going to work, but I'm going to make it work.
I just want to give a shout out for citizen participation. I was frankly a little terrified, but mostly excited by the number of people that attended, and not just on one topic, but on several topics, and including the train tragedy. And I think our community engagement needs to continue both with the gas station, but also with youth safety. And we should always keep in mind and let our constituents remember the active work we've done in response to tragedies, both along 214 and the family and children were killed, and the safety that we're working on at the high school now, and the crosswalk at Salud, the blinking lights. So we want to engage in making our city a safer place, and I think we are trying to do that. There's more work to be done, obviously.
I agree. Thank you. Councilor Sharp?
Do you want to skip to me?
Staff, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. That's where I'm at right now. For everybody, all of you, thank you. That's it.
Oh, well, you're forgetting. I want to make sure that we address the woman that asked for a stop sign on Evergreen Road and that other cross street, I can't remember the name of it. Harvard, is it? I don't know. What's the name of the road that runs behind Walmart? There's Evergreen.
Stacy Ellison?
No, Evergreen.
Oh,
Harvard.
No. Oh, Harvard.
Harvard. I've multiple times been fearful that somebody's going to fly out and hit me. So that woman brought that to our attention again. And you guys are forgetting the chili cook-off.
Oh, there we go. Yes.
Oh, best chili in the police department.
Who won it?
Chief, how many times has the police department defeated the fire district now? Three. Oh, okay, 3
I
times.
think it was because the Jacobucci's weren't involved this year.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Maybe next year it'll be a hunt involved, a Cornwall hunt, and we'll see how they do there.
Okay, laying down the gauntlet now. That's right.
Throw the gauntlet, that's all.
Well, enjoy the cauldron.
So I want to remind the council that we have a goal-setting session coming up in February.
Is there a deadline that maybe we should be emailing those goals? I work really good with a deadline. Like, how much time do you guys want to prepare
So-
your
At least a week.
responses? At least a week?
The week before?
Easy, gotcha.
So we're looking at no more than 2 goals,
Yes.
really, for everybody. And, yeah, if we can get them to Scott or McKinsey to look at and see what, be a little bit more prepared for our session, Friday night session, so please remind everybody of that. And I also would like to thank the council again for a very good meeting tonight. It's been a long time, if ever, I've seen this room that full. And it's like Mark said, it's a good sign of democracy and action. And that's good. That's good. It's not our job to please everybody. It's our job to do the right thing, the way we feel we did it, can do it, and we did it tonight. So appreciate the staff doing a good job presenting. And Jason, thank you for your talk on immigration tonight.
Oh, yes, thank you very much.
Very much on the city's position. I think that can go a long way, you know, that we do want our city to trust us. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Move second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.